All right, I believe we are live. This is my first live stream, so hopefully it is going fine. Hopefully you guys can hear me. You guys can see me. Uh, is that is that right? I see some highs. Hello, Micah. Whatever to watch. I'm on a super long delay, I think. Let me see if I can change the latency. I think I'm on. I counted it before the live stream, and I was on like a minute latency, which is way too long. So from the time I say something until the time you hear it, it was like a minute. So that was way too long. But I think everything is fine now. How are you guys doing? This is my first live stream. I'm terrified and excited. Microphone is out of the way over here. I wish I had one of those cool boom microphones, but I don't. So hopefully you guys can hear me fine. It was working pretty good in the setup, so hopefully that's good for you guys. Everything seems like it's working, says Antichrist. Always good to get Antichrist stamp of approval. All right, there's 36 people in here. What's up? That's pretty neat. Do I think Auburn gets their first passing touchdown against Georgia since 2013? Probably, as long as all their running backs are actually healthy. They've had, especially Carry On has had some trouble staying healthy this year. Is Ohio State overrated? We will see, won't we, in the next in the top 25 that's released tomorrow. I think they had a glimmer of hope that they were actually all they were cut out to be, and then they blew it big time in Iowa City. All right, so there were a bunch of really big games this past weekend. You obviously had Bedlam, Oklahoma State. That was a huge game that could have really gone either way. Towards the end of the game, I'm really glad that I was kind of worried that targeting call was going to change the game for Oklahoma. It turned out not to matter in the end. But at that moment, if you watch that game, it was a seesaw battle all the way through. I'm kind of mad that Oklahoma got that extra touchdown because I joked with my brother that the final score would be 56-54, and it would have been 55-52, and I was pretty damn close. So I'm kind of mad they got that touchdown and ruined my reputation with my brother for that one game. But yeah, I was worried with the targeting call that they called the targeting right before Oklahoma got the interception. At home with that crowd, with the momentum change, I really thought Oklahoma State was going to pull it out. That's kind of what you expect to see happen, but they didn't. Oklahoma forced a 4-and-out after that, and then obviously scored another touchdown. So let me go. I kind of, since this is my very first live stream, I don't really have any like notes or anything, so I'm just going to kind of react to you guys. There's 54 people in here. That is neat. So I'm going to kind of react to what you guys are saying. And I'm sorry, the chat's going a little fast for me. Obviously faster than I'm used to because I've never done this before. If you wouldn't mind, hit the like button. That would be really cool to see some likes hit up. And if you're randomly watching me and not subscribed, definitely make sure to hit the red subscribe button right there, probably. I'm watching the live stream as it's happening, so I'm behind. So I don't know if I actually pointed to the right thing or not. But definitely make sure to subscribe and talk to me in the chat. Let me know what you guys are up to, what you thought about this weekend, what you are looking forward to. Yeah, I hit the subscribe button pretty much right on. I'm pretty proud of that. See what you guys are looking for this weekend. What was your biggest takeaway from this past weekend? It's really strange. It's all quiet. I just have this little microphone and this webcam that isn't quite as high res as I wanted it to be, and then your comments. So it's very strange. It's very weird. Skittle Steve 01 says thoughts on Clemson. Clemson has everything in front of them. They still have Auburn as a really good win. People keep talking about Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Auburn as really good wins. Louisville is not good. Louisville is Lamar Jackson and everybody else. So saying that Louisville is a good road win, while at the time in September that looked like a really good road win, now not as much. So you still have Auburn, but Auburn has a chance to lose 2 more games to Georgia and Alabama. So I don't know if we would, an 8-4 team at the end of the year, that's fine. That's a good win. But is it good enough to justify Clemson getting into the playoff if they were to win out? I don't know. If Notre Dame beats Miami, and Clemson beats Miami in the ACC Championship, they will have beaten eventually a 2-loss team. Is that worthy of getting into the playoff? I'm not really sure. But as long as Kelly Bryant is healthy, and as long as the offense can stay on the field and keep the defense off the field, which is not what happened in the Carrier Dome against Syracuse, then I definitely think Clemson has a chance. Do I think right now Clemson is one of the 4 best teams in the country? I do not. But you can tell that by my ranking. But there's still a lot of room for improvement. South Carolina is now going to be a better looking win than I thought it would be at the beginning of the year. Hopefully for the Tigers, Miami stays undefeated and they can beat a 12-0 Miami team. But I've got a feeling Notre Dame is probably going to beat them this weekend. But I also thought Virginia Tech was going to beat Miami, and I was wrong about that. So, is there any hope left for Ohio State in the playoffs, says Nicholas? No. No, that pretty much got snuffed out by Iowa. And then especially when you have the head-to-head with Oklahoma. Oklahoma in Columbus was a much better team. So with the way Notre Dame is really throwing a wrench in the plan of the playoff right now, and undefeated Georgia, undefeated Alabama is really screwing it up. It looks like there's only going to be you're going to have maybe 2 SEC teams, Notre Dame, and then a bunch of teams vying for that 4th spot. And they're probably, if everything keeps going the way it's going to go, they're probably either going to give it to the defending champ Clemson or to Oklahoma. So, no, I think Ohio State and Penn State are both pretty much done. Those were both not great losses. Penn State, if you want to say 3-hour delay, there was that 3-hour delay. They were on the road in weird conditions. They had the lead. They had, a chance late. But Michigan State had all of those things happen to them too, and they won, except for the road thing. They were home. But video from the break of, Saquon, I don't know what they were throwing, M&Ms or something he was catching in his mouth. They seemed pretty loose and pretty... They didn't seem, all that wound up during the break. So I do think the Big Ten, it's really Wisconsin and everybody else. And even the case for Wisconsin isn't that good right now. They expected a 1-loss Michigan team at worst, maybe an undefeated Michigan team there at the very end or the next to last game. And the Wolverines already have 2 losses. It's not going to look good, so they expected to have that little boost in the polls right before playing hopefully an undefeated team from the East, and that's not going to happen now. So even a 13-0 Big Ten champ Wisconsin is in danger of being left out. Do I think Michigan is back at the top 25 rank? Yeah, I think Michigan's probably one of the best 25 teams in the nation right now. If they're not, they're right there on the bubble. I can't remember if I put them in. I already done my top 25. I did it yesterday afternoon, and I can't remember if I had them in or not. I don't have that right beside me. USC will win the Pac-12 and win the Fiesta Bowl. At this point, I don't doubt that. That's Jared Cruz. I don't doubt that because they beat Arizona, which was the only other... I think Arizona was 4-1, 3-1 in the conference. And Arizona State has 2 losses in the division already. So USC probably should win out. I think one more win and they clinch. Or if Arizona State loses, they clinch. And the teams from the North right now, I believed in Stanford in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if it's Bryce Love's injury. That win against Oregon was a really, really bad win. And they lost to Washington State, who can't decide if they want to keep Luke Falk as their quarterback or not. You still have Washington, but Washington still has to play Washington State. And when USC played Washington last year, it didn't it didn't go very well. And that was back when I think Washington had a little bit more weapons than they do now, but it was also when Sam Darnold played at a higher level than he is right now. So I don't really know, but USC in the Fiesta Bowl, I think is a better case than probably some of the other bowls. The way it works out this year, in case you didn't know, since the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl are playoff spots, the Orange Bowl gets the either ACC champion, if they're not in the playoff, or the next best ACC team. So if we assume Clemson goes to the playoff, if they don't, obviously Clemson will be in the Orange Bowl. If Clemson goes to the playoff, it would be probably the loser of the ACC championship game, because I would assume at that point either Virginia Tech or Miami are the next highest ranked team. Other than that, I don't think there's any automatic bids. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Peach and the Fiesta are always open bids. Sugar Bowl always has the SEC champ, but it's a pretty safe bet at this point that the SEC champ is going to be in the playoff. The Rose Bowl is the Big Ten Pac-12 champs, but that's used for the playoff. And I think that's it. So the Big 12 normally does the sugar or orange. Is that right? I think it used to be the cotton. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But it's pretty much a free-for-all when it comes to the New Year's Six bowls this year. The Group of 5 team will probably go to the Peach Bowl from what I've been reading. Dan Blanchard. I'm sorry, I know there's so many comments. Like, I can see them out of the corner of my eye when I'm looking right at the camera that there's comments going by. I don't want you to spam, but at the same time, if you ask, you have a better chance of seeing it. I tend to ramble. That's something that you guys don't see that I edit out of my videos a lot since this is my first live stream. You'll get a full dose of it. I ramble a whole lot. So if you ask me something, I tend to go on like a little wave of it. I was about to ask. I was about to say one. Dan Blanchard. Or Blanchard? Do you think if TCU beats Oklahoma and wins the Big 12 championship, then they get in the playoffs? As long as they stay one loss, I think that is fine, because Oklahoma's one loss would also be against Iowa State. The problem with that is they would probably play twice based on how it's seizing up right now. It will probably be TCU and Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game if I were a betting man right now, no matter the outcome of their game. But if they beat Oklahoma twice, their only loss is to Iowa State, and they have that one loss, they have an excellent, excellent case. Because the Iowa State loss, when you used to lose to Iowa State, that looked like doo-doo, and now it doesn't look as doo-doo anymore. They're still in the top 25. They'll still be in the top 25 this week after the loss to West Virginia. They're not going to drop from 15 all the way out. That Iowa game was so entertaining, says Matt the Destroyer. Depends on who you're rooting for, I guess. I bet Ohio State fans would not agree with you, but I was not watching the very beginning of that game. I was flip around between like 3 or 4 games, and I was not watching the beginning of that game. That was the 3:30 game. I was watching Clemson, NC State, Iowa, Ohio State, Bedlam when it came on, and Penn State, Michigan State, because that was still on from the rain delay. I think those are the games I was mostly flipping around during the 3:30. But opening play, pick 6, that set the whole tone. And for a quarterback like JT Barrett, who is, I don't know the kid. I'm not in his head. But I know he has gone through a lot of adversity in his, 5 years at Ohio State. All kinds of ups and downs. Heisman watch lists, injuries, people doubting him. He had a 25-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And then to have such a great game and go, I think, 18 of 18, in his last quarter and a half against Penn State, and then to come out in your first play on the road in a tough venue, in a game that's really important, when you're back on top of the Heisman watch list or near the top, and to throw a pick 6, that's got to be brutal. So he might be too mentally volatile, and it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back rather. Andrew Flister says, watching some of your older videos and you look a lot better. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I'm going to assume you mean the quality of the videos and not that I specifically look better. I have not lost any weight. So thank you for the technical compliment. If Miami wins against Notre Dame this weekend, can Miami still make the playoff? Yeah, of course. They're undefeated. Miami needs to win this weekend against Notre Dame to continue to make the playoffs. Hagen's crew says, can Auburn clinch a number 4 slot? Probably not, just because of the 2 losses. They're not bad losses. Clemson and LSU are not bad, but you're going to have probably a handful of one-loss teams. You already have Notre Dame at number 3 and Clemson at number 4, and you lost to Clemson, so you would need Clemson to lose another game. But even then, Clemson's still a 2-loss team that beat you, so wouldn't they still theoretically be ahead of you in the rankings? The Big 12 is going to eat itself, so I'm not sure that Auburn can clinch the 4 slot unless Notre Dame loses. If there's still a chance for a lot of chaos to happen in the next really 4 weeks, including the championship weekend, because you have 5 undefeated teams. 2 of them play each other. One has to play, and Wisconsin has to play a much better division. And Miami still has to play Clemson. UCF still has to play USF and the winner of the West, which I believe will probably be Memphis in the American. So there's still a lot of room for chaos. Yeah, a lot of room for some chaos. If there is a 2-loss team that gets into the playoffs, I'm just curious what you think. And let me know down in the chat. What is the scenario where we would have to get an 8-team playoff? I feel like if one conference gets 2 teams in, Notre Dame is in, and then you have a 2-loss champion in, that would be all hell would break loose, right? So I think that would probably nudge people to start thinking about an 8-team playoff in 2022, because they already kind of have a contract through, I think, 2021, but I'm not sure about that. What do I think of BYU's terrible season, and will Texas make it to a bowl? Yeah, I don't know what's going on in BYU. I know part of that is their schedule because they're independent, but 1-8 or 2-8, whatever they are right now, is unacceptable. Will Texas make it to a bowl game? I think Texas makes it to a bowl game. Do I think there's any chance the Big Ten will reorganize their divisions after the season? Commander Holland asks. No. I think the way I think about divisions is I always think about the SEC. Yes, they did it first. But when I was growing up, I was born in 1989. When I was growing up in the 90s, the East was it. I'm not even sure I could have told you who was all in the West. The East was it. You had Georgia, you had Tennessee, you had Kentucky. I'm just kidding. You had Florida. So there was a lot of... The East was it every year. I didn't grow up watching Alabama, LSU. I grew up watching Georgia, Tennessee, and Georgia, Florida. So, no, I don't think they'll reorganize, because in the 90s it was the East, and then in the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, it's the West. And I have no doubt that within the next 10 years it'll shift back to the East dominating. I know that seems kind of weird with Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Tennessee all being just crap at the bottom of the East, but I do think it'll switch back to them eventually. I have no idea how to say your name, but FF asked me what do I think about the Louisville Cardinals. They are a one-man team. It is Lamar Jackson, and there are 21 other people on the field, and that's it. And that poor kid, he plays his heart out. He does everything that the coaches ask of him and more. He does everything to win those games. He has consistently like 400 and 500 yard games. And then the defense lets Boston College get 45 points and they lose. It has got to be so frustrating. I don't know what his pro scout card looks like. I don't know if he is thinking about going pro, if he'll be able to do that as a quarterback in the NFL. I'm just not sure. But I would try to get out of there. I think he's a junior. I would work on my degree and transfer. I have this feeling that Bobby Petrino is done after this year. I don't know why, other than his history, but I do think he's watching his team tank a little bit. There's going to be a lot of job openings, a lot of big-time job openings where teams want an offense, and that's what the dude does. So I think he will jump ship. He's going to try for the SEC. He's going to try for Tennessee. He's going to try for Florida. Or Arkansas is going to be hiring soon, right? I don't know. But yeah, if I was Lamar Jackson, I would try to leave. Or try to do something because... Ugh. All right. 77 people. Hey, thanks, guys. There's a lot of y'all watching. I appreciate it. Sam Parker says, I would say Wisconsin will have played 4 ranked teams by the end. Northwestern, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, or Michigan State. How would they not make it? Because I don't know if Northwestern is going to be ranked by the end of the year. I'm still not sure about Iowa. Iowa has to go to Wisconsin. If that game was at home, it might be a different story, but they have to go to Wisconsin this weekend. I think the West is going to kind of beat itself up, with the exception of Wisconsin. Northwestern is a really interesting team. The first FBS team to ever have 3 straight overtime games, and I know for a fact one of them was 3 overtimes. Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State would probably be ranked. I don't know if Michigan will be when they, depending on what Michigan decides to do, I don't know if they will be ranked when Wisconsin plays them. They probably will, but they may not be after Wisconsin beats them. And then the winner in the East. But I can definitely see, Clemson's non-conference scheduling is Auburn at home and South Carolina on the road. Then they would have, at least statistically, in the ranked way, that didn't make sense. In the ranked way, they would play a tougher team in, say, an undefeated or 1-loss Miami than Wisconsin would, and at least a 2-loss team. Every team in the East has at least 2 losses. So, could I see the committee putting in a 1-loss Clemson over Wisconsin? Yes. Could I see them putting in a 1-loss Oklahoma or TCU over Wisconsin? Yes. Especially Oklahoma with the win against Ohio State, which is something that if Ohio State makes it into the championship, they could compare Wisconsin on. Because they started Wisconsin, I think they were number 9 in the initial playoff, 9 or 10. And that does not show a whole lot of respect. They already have teams like Clemson and Oklahoma ahead of them. Thoughts on Purdue, says Boiler Squad 24. I'm going to say something that you're not going to like, but then I'm going to redeem it and say something you are going to like. I have always found Purdue to be one of the most boring teams in college football. I would get irrationally mad when they would be on at 8 o'clock on ABC because Purdue is just whatever. I've never understood. Like, I remember the Drew Brees days, the Joe Tiller days, and ever since then it feels like Purdue was walking in the desert and they didn't know exactly what they wanted to do. That's the bad thing. That's the thing you're not going to like. But I really like what Brom is doing. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, if he stays there and he can get his guys in there, they're going to win the West. So I think Purdue has as much upside as they've had in a very, very long time. Grab a swig of water. Nathan Sipple asks, should Texas A&M look for a new coach? Yes. I do not think Kevin Sumlin is particularly a bad coach. I do think it's time to move on. I think both parties have done as much as they can for each other. There are already reports that A&M is like starting down the road of getting rid of him. I would love to see him go somewhere out west and do something wacky with a great offense. Go somewhere like I don't know. I don't know any Western teams that are going to open up. Oregon State? I don't know. But it would be fun to watch him. Sorry about that. It would be fun to watch him go do some wacky things and see what kind of a coach A&M decides to go in. Because it seemed like such a home run hire when he got hired. But, once Johnny Manziel left, the quarterback carousel just kept going, and they never really could land on the right guy, and they let too many good guys go. So, yeah, I think it's time for a regime change in College Station. Do I think Georgia is taking over the East? Yes. I mean, they're undefeated. The East, it doesn't take a lot to take over the East. That's the thing that's frustrated me about these teams in the East over the last few years, and I think that's what frustrated Florida fans and Tennessee fans to help, well, I can't say get rid of their coach because Butch Jones is still miraculously in Knoxville. But I do think that's where the frustration is it's not like you're in the same division with Alabama, though if you're Tennessee, you play Alabama every year. You're looking around at the division and you have Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt. Georgia's been a 7-5, 8-4 team the last year or two. Florida hasn't been Florida since Will Grier left anyway. You look around and you go, why are we 10-2? Why aren't we beating all of these teams in our division? Why do we keep losing to, Will Muschamp at South Carolina? Why do we keep losing to Kentucky? This shouldn't happen. Why is Vanderbilt beating Georgia? And I think that's where some of the frustration is. So yes, I think Georgia's taking over the East. No, I don't think that is as hard to do as it once was. Yes, I do think Georgia is still a really good team. Do I think that Boise State will make the top 25 by the end of the year? I don't know. I think the Mountain West is a little off the radar. Had they beaten Washington State in that 3 overtime game they were in, they would be in much better position to make a case. The Fresno State game at the end of the year will be a lot. It'll probably be the first of two. I think Boise and Fresno are going to play in back-to-back weeks. The Washington State loss was big, but beating teams like Wyoming, which, bowl teams, Wyoming, Colorado State, I think those will matter. Boise ranked at the end of the year, I'm not sure. Depends on how much the voters are paying attention to the Mountain West. My very first super chat. Hey, RC Airliners, $2. Thank you. I appreciate it. Kansas beat Texas. # never forget. Never forget. Never forget the time Kansas beat Texas at home. They can't beat them on the road because Kansas hasn't won a road game in 4 years, 5 years. It might be longer than that. I think it's 40 games. And if you play 5, has it been 7 or 8 years since Kansas won a road game? That is unbelievable. I wonder what the longest streak is. Willie Young says, hey Dustin, huge fan, keep up all the great work you do. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Antichrist says, did Texas make a mistake firing Charlie Strong? No, I don't think so. Texas fan says, shut up, RC Airliners. I don't think they made a mistake. I was in camp, keep Charlie Strong until the Kansas game. When they lost to Kansas, I was like, you can't lose to Kansas. I think he's a really good coach. It's interesting to see what he's done in USF. There's rumors that he's going to leave USF because of low attendance. I don't know if that's true. One of my subscribers told me that, but yeah, I was a fan of his. I think he. It's really strange. I don't know if he got a raw deal. That seems like a weird way to put it, because he had 3 years and they were all losing seasons. And I know at Texas that's absolutely they shoot for national championships, so there's no way they're going to settle for 3 straight losing seasons. But I don't know. It was the same thing. Just he couldn't quite click it. But yeah, I thought it was a good idea. Do I ever see Kansas going the UAB route and discontinuing their football program? No. The difference is Kansas, they're a basketball school, first off. They want to do good in football. The athletic director is about to spend money renovating and updating the stadium and adding seats, I think, which seems optimistic. But UAB is UAB got cut off by Alabama, which sucks. And because Alabama has never played UAB. How do you not play your own school? I don't get that. They're like an hour away. You could play a home game in Birmingham. You used to do that all the time at Legion Field. But no, they're not going to discontinue their football program. as bad as it is, it's always kind of been bad, other than like the 1920s when it was kind of good. When like the Big Eight first started, I think they were the Big Six. It was all right, but no, they're not gonna discontinue it. Sullivan Burt asked a really good question. I'm not trying to hate, but why have you not posted like every day or other day the past week? Just curious. My throat, you can hear it. So after the Georgia Tech Clemson game, October 28th, so last Saturday, it was feeling a little wonky. And then I took a few days off to kind of let that rest up. And then trying to catch up, I spent like 2 or 3 days straight filming and editing. And I just got behind. And then my throat started hurting again. And I was like, okay, well, the Thursday, Friday videos don't typically do as well. So I just kind of shut it down. I planned on doing Saturday videos, and then I just had personal stuff, friends and family came in. So I apologize. I'm trying to get back on schedule. It's like my voice is all I have. I don't have like a blog or anything yet. So if my throat hurts and I'm like you heard the throat a few minutes ago and the water, you didn't hear the water, but I have water. So I appreciate it. I know I'm letting you down, and I sit around and hate myself. I need to figure out a way to make like a blog. Is Lamar Jackson the Heisman in your opinion? No. If you watch the video I put out a couple hours ago, I've kept him at 10th. I think he's better than the 10th best player in the country. His stats are so good, but his team is so bad. And in the biggest games against NC State and Clemson that Louisville's had this year, because unfortunately Florida State didn't really matter that much, A, they lost, and B, he mostly wasn't in the equation. In the Clemson game, he never really got on the board, and in NC State, it was a lot of garbage time in the fourth quarter. So, you hope I feel better. Thank you, Sullivan. I appreciate it. No problem. But yeah, he just, when they needed him most, he didn't come through. So his stats are eye-popping, as they always are, but I just can't justify putting him up top against people like Baker Mayfield. Trivia question. When was the last time Kansas went 12-1? I believe that was 2007. They lost to Missouri and still got in the Orange Bowl for some reason. This is a fun one. Devastating with a lot of eyes says, how about NC State's head coach accusing Clemson of cheating with a laptop? Yeah, how about that? I don't like him, Dave Doeren. I don't like him. I don't respect him. After the Clemson game last year, he said in his, every coach has that like Sunday show the next morning. He was like, yeah, we did a lot of great things. We knocked their running back out of the game. They knocked Wayne Gallman out with a concussion. What? And he always kind of seems a little on the whinier side. I don't know. I don't have any evidence like I do against Brian Kelly that nothing is ever Brian Kelly's fault. I feel like nothing is ever Dave Doeren's fault or his team's fault. And I knew watching that game that NC State fans and probably players, and definitely Dave Doeren, were going to say they were cheating, the refs wanted them to win, the ACC wanted Clemson to win. I already knew the conspiracy theories were going to come. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's he complained that Clemson had a laptop on the sideline. And I guess that's illegal. Like I've thought about it since, and I've never seen a laptop on the sideline. I guess that's bad. I assume he thinks that Clemson was cheating and was looking at NC State's plays in the same way that if you watch NFL games, they have those Microsoft Outlook tablets or whatever, and they go over plays. I guess he thought they were doing that. Tim Beret, who is the SID at Clemson and someone who I really like and really trust as a person, said that it was the social media team, which Clemson is ranked number 1 in the country as of last year, was doing live edits of plays on the sideline, and the NC State didn't give them a place to do that, so they had to do it on the sideline. I'm going to stick with that story. It seems a lot better than Clemson was doing what the Red Sox did earlier in the year, right? They were using the Apple Watch or whatever. I don't know. I don't see why that's a big deal anyway. I didn't know. I didn't think about it until this happened, that they don't have laptops on the sideline like they do in the pros. I don't know why. I really never thought about that until this, but yeah, it's not Dave Doran's fault that Clemson won. What was up with that dude stealing Bryant's towel? I don't know how that wasn't a flag. Like, once you see him do it 2 or 3 times, it was Chubb, who is he's Nick Chubb's cousin. I knew he had to be related, but I didn't know it until Saturday when they talked about it. Yeah, during the game he was stealing Kelly Bryant's towel. The defensive line did that all game. They did stuff like that. Kelly Bryant, they would shove Kelly Bryant after a play instead of helping him up. They would just walk away. Or when they were walking back to the huddle, they all made sure to shoulder check Kelly Bryant. Whatever. It's just trying to get in Kelly Bryant's head. The towel thing should be like a delay a game or something. That seems kind of weird. Will a non-Power 5 team ever make the playoffs? Probably. I think probably, not this year, but probably they would need to have a couple of years of sustained success in order to get to the level where the committee trusts them enough. I'm talking they need to be undefeated for 2 or 3 years to finally get that shot. I actually made a video about that a couple months ago during the summer. You got the Spartans or the Buckeyes? That is a really good question. I still don't know yet. It really could go either way. I'm going to check. I can't remember if the game is at Columbus or if it's in East Lansing. Probably could have just asked instead of looking for it. I'm really terrified right now that because I switched screens and I can't see myself, that I'm not... Oh, it's in Columbus. That I'm not live streaming. Yeah, still there. That's good. Excuse me. It's in Columbus. Obviously, that's a big tip of the hat to Ohio State. It's going to depend on how JT Barrett performs, what's going on in his head, if he feels like he needs to bounce back or if he needs to prove himself and force some throws and have a bunch of interceptions like he did against Iowa. As of right now, I'll tell you in a video I'm putting out tomorrow. See a lot of Columbuses. I think I saw RC Airliners with $3.10. Thank you. In memory of Ohio State losing to 31-0 to Clemson. Never forget that either. There's this whole thing with Papa John's controversy about him blaming football for not having enough pizza. And I saw a lot of memes on Twitter about pizza sales in Columbus aren't going down because Urban Meyer's going to eat it after the Iowa game. I thought that was funny. There's that photo of him just sitting on the golf cart, and he looks so sad eating pizza. I have no idea what it's from. I didn't see it until after the Clemson game. I have no idea where it originally came from, but yeah, just sad Urban Meyer eating pizza. Will Oklahoma drop 90 on Kansas? No, they will not. They will not. But I would expect Baker Mayfield to probably be on the bench by the middle of the third quarter. How long do you think it will be before Texas is a contender, says Craig McKenzie? Not that long. They're only a couple of, I don't want to say a couple of plays, but maybe a player or two away from contending in the Big 12 this year. So the more he can recruit, he's already familiar with the area from his time over in Houston. The more Herman can recruit, the quicker they will obviously be. And with a name like Texas and a coach like Herman, it won't take long, I think. Within the next 2 years, they'll be in the Big 12 championship game. Drew said, what? Said, say Clemson, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, Wisconsin win out, and Georgia loses by 1 to Alabama. Rank those 6 teams. So my rank is going to be different than the college football playoff. The playoff is what matters. So if Alabama's undefeated, Wisconsin's undefeated, then you have a 1-loss Clemson, 1-loss Oklahoma, 1-loss Notre Dame, and 1-loss Georgia. I think Bama's 1. I don't know if they'll put Wisconsin 2. So something that I'm willing to say that nobody on TV that I've seen has been willing to say is I don't think the committee picks the best 4 teams. If they did, they would have put TCU or Baylor in 2014, or they would have put in the team that beat Ohio State last year. So I'm not sure they put in the best teams. I think they put in the best matchups. I think they are money-generating people. They are a committee made to generate money, made to generate eyeballs. And I've wondered right now if we had the 4 teams we have right now, how they would match it up, because I don't think they want Alabama, Georgia in the semifinal in back-to-back games, but I also think they would prefer to have Alabama, Clemson in the national championship. So I don't know what you do unless you do Alabama 1. Oh, but they have Georgia 1. That's the problem. I don't know. It would be really interesting. But of those 6, I would probably say Alabama 1. Clemson 2. No, Notre Dame 2. Clemson 3, Oklahoma 4. I think the only way Georgia gets in the playoff, my opinion, the only way Georgia gets in the playoff is to go undefeated. I think if Georgia beats Alabama, they will give Alabama grace, and they will say, "Yeah, but you are still Alabama. We know people are going to watch you. We know you've been the AP number 1 from poll all the way until the SEC championship." So I think if Georgia loses, if that scenario comes, Georgia might be number 5, which would be infuriating to a lot of people, but they would justify it by saying they're not a champion. Not that Notre Dame is. But they would find a way to probably put Georgia 5, Oklahoma 6. That's just a guess. It depends on how the teams play out. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so this year feels good. I bet it does. But who do you think will win the game this week versus Miami? I think Notre Dame will probably win. It is in Miami, and it's really weird. So Miami has one less game because they canceled the game at Arkansas State that I actually think would have been a tougher game than a lot of people give it credit for. I think that game would have mattered. I don't think, especially with the way Miami was playing early in the season, it could have been at least interesting out there. But they do have one less game. They weren't not taken seriously by many people, including the committee, until this week. And then they had a really big win against Virginia Tech. I thought Virginia Tech would beat Miami. I really did. I love Joshua Jackson. Whoa, there was a lot of spit in that. I love Joshua Jackson. I think that offense under Fuente is going to be very good. Of course, you have Bud Foster's defense. I thought Miami would come in high and mighty and get the legs taken out from under them. But they didn't. They even with Rozier's 3 interceptions, they still came back and beat Virginia Tech, or stayed ahead of Virginia Tech for most of the game. And by the third quarter or something, it wasn't even in doubt who was the better team. So I think the Miami-Notre Dame game is going to be really fun. 8 o'clock, Catholics versus convicts, that whole thing. I think it's going to be really, really fun, especially if Notre Dame traveling across the country, going into Miami, knowing that if they lose, they're done. With no conference championship, I don't care how tough their schedule is, a 2-loss Notre Dame team is probably not going to get in the playoff. And if Miami can beat Notre Dame, they're going to be undefeated until they play probably Clemson. UGA losing to Alabama by any score seems more impressive than Clemson losing to Syracuse. I may be a biased dog fan, but still. I agree with you. Remember, I'm the one that has Clemson like number 12 in the poll right now. So I absolutely agree with you, especially if Notre Dame doesn't lose again. You have that win against Notre Dame, which is, as of right now, probably the best win of the season. And I think if Georgia loses, especially by 1 point, which was the scenario given a minute ago, to Alabama, that they should be in. I'm saying that the committee is not going to be, probably, they've surprised me before with some of their rankings, but they're probably not going to be as forgiving as I would, or as forgiving as if Alabama had lost by 1 point, based on the recent history of Alabama versus the recent history of Georgia. And that's all I'm saying. Coastal Arkansas game thoughts. Oh man, I almost forgot about that. I was pulling for Coastal so much. Little upstart Coastal, who has only won one game, I think, and that was against UMass, who not almost beat. Who was it UMass played? Oh, Mississippi State. They didn't almost beat Mississippi State, but it was closer than it should have. They did almost beat Tennessee early in the year, which, I was pulling for Coastal. They don't have their coach right now. They were traveling all the way out to Arkansas, and boy, Arkansas had to rally from 13 points down with like 10 minutes to go to win that game. Brett Bielema would be homeless right now if they'd lost that game. Cole Nugent asks if I follow the NFL at all. I do. My team is the Philadelphia Eagles. I try to keep up with other teams, but with everything I try to do here and life stuff, I tend to focus, obviously, way more on college, but I tend to watch Eagles games. My dad has the Sunday ticket, so I watch every single Eagles game, and then through that, I find out about other teams. And then if I'm bored and or have extra time, I usually watch the Sunday night game. I'm missing the Monday night game right now. Which, hey, you're a Packers fan. Thank you for watching. You should not be here. You should be watching your team. If Miami wins out and OU loses to TCU, is Miami in? Yeah. If in my opinion, if Miami wins out, depending on what other chaos happens at the top, I think an undefeated Miami should get in over Notre Dame. Well, obviously over Notre Dame, over Wisconsin. But Notre Dame's loss will bring another team into the fold. You know what I mean? Fly, Eagles, fly. That's what's up. Hell to the Redskins. Carson Wentz did not hell to you. Are you a Chattanooga Mocs fan? Not particularly. I don't know much about them. I have watched some of their games in the past when they played Furman, because I live near Furman and Wofford. What about Watson tearing his ACL? Yeah, that sucks. I was really rooting for that guy. And he was clearly going to be Rookie of the Year. And maybe MVP. That's a huge blow to the Texans. NFL is trash compared to college. I 1,000% agree. If somebody was like, Dustin, would you rather watch college football or and I would have said the other thing, no matter what it was. College is the greatest sport in the world. The NFL is it's way more boring compared to college. When you have college-like games, sometimes you have games that are just crazy in the NFL when there's two really equal teams like the Seahawks-Houston Texans game a few weeks ago. That was very much a college game, if you watched it. That was Bedlam. That was Bedlam in the NFL. And those are really fun to watch. Obviously, whenever the Eagles play, especially right now we're 8-1, that's really fun to watch. You have when the Packers and Cowboys play, those are always really fun games. But I don't care about the Jaguars and Browns. Can the Big Ten get close to the top 4? Yes, but it has to be Wisconsin. That's it. If Wisconsin loses, they're done. Because Wisconsin is kind of like the Washington of last year. With, they're undefeated, but people don't really believe in them because of their schedule, specifically their non-conference schedule. So people don't really believe in Wisconsin. One loss and they're done. They haven't quite proven themselves across the board. So even if that's in the Big Ten championship game, they're done. In which case, if they're done, the Big Ten's out. What chaos needs to happen for Washington, for Pac-12 champ Washington to make it in? A lot. So again, the Big 12 is going to eat itself unless the winner of Oklahoma TCU probably beats that team again in the Big 12 championship. There's a chance that the Big 12 is going to eat itself. The Big 10 is going to eat itself. You would need Notre Dame to beat Miami, and then Miami to beat Clemson. You would need Stanford or Navy to beat Notre Dame. You need Alabama to blow Georgia out. I mean, I guess theoretically there's a way, but they would need a lot. Anybody in the Pac-12, even USC, would need a lot of help. Biggest disappointment of the season, Texas sports gaming. I'm gonna stick to your state. Even though I know that they aren't traditionally the biggest team. I know with the first-year head coach there was going to be some setbacks, but what's been going on at Baylor this year is pretty disappointing. You don't expect Baylor to be 1-8 anymore. How weird is that? 10 years ago, everybody would have laughed at me saying that. But yeah, I think Baylor is pretty disappointing. I think USC's starting to get better, but they're a little bit disappointing as far as the production, really, of Sam Darnold. Florida State, I know they lost their quarterback, but 3-5. There are a couple of swatted balls at the end of the game away from losing to Wake Forest and Duke, and being bowl ineligible already before they play Clemson at Clemson. That's pretty disappointing. I know Louisville has had some injuries, Jair Alexander and some other players, Brandon Radcliffe, but Louisville is pretty disappointing as well. Others that jump out at me. Michigan, I just thought their offense. Florida, I thought both of their offenses would be better. I thought Zaire's transfer to Gainesville was going to pay dividends, and it did not. What about you guys? What are some other... Did I think USC was going to win versus Notre Dame? I think at the time I did. I thought it would be close. Certainly closer than it was. But I wasn't quite a believer in Notre Dame then. Certainly not that I am now. Because I also wasn't that big of a believer in Georgia at that time yet either. The Georgia win against Mississippi State opened my eyes a little bit, but then Mississippi State beat LSU and LSU lost to Troy. So I was like, oh, maybe that doesn't mean anything. But at the time, I thought it was going to be competitive, but I thought Darnold would find a way. He did not find a way. Would I say that Auburn is a lock in the playoffs if they beat Georgia and Alabama? No, not a lock. Minnesota's kind of disappointing. I agree, but it's PJ Fleck's first year. He'll get that ship turned around, I believe. Is Auburn a lock? No, not a lock. If they had not lost to LSU, yes. Yes, they would be a lock. Because they're going to have to play Georgia. They'd have to beat Georgia twice. Because if they went out and beat Alabama, they're the West champs. And then they have to beat Georgia again. And that is saying a lot. But the loss to LSU, being up 20-0 and having LSU come back and win, that's a killer, man. With all these other teams. Again, this all depends on the chaos that ends up happening at the top. If Notre Dame wins out. All that. But yeah, it would be a big blow to the SEC too. The SEC is gearing up for two teams in the playoff. Who do you think has a harder schedule between Oklahoma, Notre Dame, or Auburn? I actually don't. That's tough. For the first time in a long time that I can remember, normally I don't think Notre Dame's schedule is really that tough. They always talk about having a tough independent schedule. I don't really think it's that tough most of the years. This year is Notre Dame might have week in and week out the toughest schedule in the nation. I'm not quite sure what the statistics on that are right now. Auburn, playing Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, that's tough. Oklahoma went into Ohio State. I think all three are really tough. I would probably still give the edge to Notre Dame right now. We'll see how that changes by the end of the year. But right now, I think Notre Dame probably had a tougher schedule. I don't think many people expected. I don't think many people expected Georgia to be as good as they are. I don't think many people expected Miami to be as good as they are. So Notre Dame, they still have Navy, who's slipping. Navy looked really good a couple weeks ago. They're slipping. Stanford, slipping. So that will probably change to Auburn. But you should make a top 5 biggest hot seats. I actually meant to make a mid-season hot seat list for the head coaches, kind of updating who I thought was going to get the can, and I just didn't. I got distracted by other videos. The media jumped on the Darnold train way too fast. Disagree. Sam Darnold last year was dominant at USC, led them all the way, was the only reason they won that Rose Bowl. USC and Penn State were the two hottest teams at the end of the year, and he is the reason why. It's just, we figured that would just carry over, and we didn't think about the hype maybe getting to him, or the celebrity in LA maybe getting to him, or the fact that USC is actually a really good school, balancing academics and the hype and the football, and teams having an entire offseason to game plan for him when he came in the third or fourth game of the year. So, Nebraska is the biggest disappointment. Yeah, Nebraska is a big disappointment. They're really big. Is Bama's schedule too weak for their ranking? No. Their schedule isn't what it normally is. Normally the West is banging, and normally, they played Florida State back when Florida State was still full power, and they'll have some bigger games towards the end of the year. They beat LSU team that's still good. They will play Auburn. They will play Georgia if they win. But they're still Alabama, and they're beating teams, sometimes 66-3. So not quite. I wouldn't say Alabama's overrated. I will say injuries to Alabama's defense in particular could end up being costly towards the end of the season. Luckily, there's no Deshaun Watson. There's no unbelievably dynamic player who can take down opposing defenses like Watson did to them last year, and they'll have plenty of time to scheme if they make it into the playoff. Someone said if the Big 12 broke up, Texas would go independent. Your thoughts? I can see that. I don't know if they would. I don't know if that would be the smartest thing in the world. The smartest thing in the world is to have your TV contract with the Longhorn Network and still be in the conference. But Texas is one of the teams that if they went independent, they would be perfectly fine. They would clearly see a hit to their pocketbook a little bit from the way the conferences dole it out. But I don't think the Big 12 is doling out a whole lot per team right now. So, what? Notre Dame's schedule isn't great? I didn't say it wasn't great. I think it's the toughest right now. I'm saying there's a chance some of the teams that looked really good a week or two ago, Stanford, Navy, USC, some of those teams still have opportunities to drop off a little bit. So there's a chance that by the end of the year, some of the teams in Notre Dame's wake won't have been as good as they were before Notre Dame played them. That makes sense. Really want OU to play Miami in the playoff. Get revenge for the 80s. That is a long time to hold a grudge, Cole George. Living in Minnesota, Fleck has boosted interest in the program. I still think it will take at least 3 years before Fleck makes a run at the West title. I agree. It'll be a little. You got to build up some of these programs. Purdue, Minnesota, you got to build those up a little bit. 34-3, Kansas beats Oklahoma. What is your reaction? Nuclear meltdown in Norman. That's my reaction. Butch Jones and Brett Bielema, which will be more likely to be fired by the end of the season? The answer is yes. They will both be gone at the end of the season. I can't imagine either program keeping either guy. Do you see Florida State firing Kelly or Trickett at the end of the season? Yeah, they're going to have to make some changes. It all starts at the offensive line, which is something that was a problem for Florida State last year. And when you're Florida State, you can't have those problems. A couple of weeks ago after the Louisville game, Jimbo Fisher got into an argument. I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't want to make a dedicated video for this. Jimbo Fisher, did y'all see where he got into an argument with a fan in the crowd who said, hire new coaches? And he started yelling at him. First off, you're the head coach of Florida State. Shut up. Just walk into the tunnel. You're going to get criticism. You don't have to stand up for everything you see. Second, yeah, man, get new coaches. That is a perfectly fine thing to say. You need some help. Clearly, your coordinators are not getting it done. So I think they're going to definitely have to make some changes at the end of the year. Get some more water. Hold on. feel so rude drinking water. I know you like Bama. Are you worried about the lack of linebacker depth right now with the injuries? Yes. Yes, I am. Yes. Very much so. And that's always been Alabama's MO. That's always been like the center. The defensive line has been great. You can have great secondary like Minkah Fitzpatrick, who also got injured in the LSU game. But the linebackers have always been the ones to make the checks, to make all the blitzing calls. You know, middle linebacker is Nick Saban on the field. And the more you keep rotating those linebackers because of injuries and putting new guys in, especially now that you're getting into the meat of the schedule down here in the stretch, yes, that worries me. Do I think Clemson will redshirt Trevor Lawrence? I don't know. That is a really interesting question. So Trevor Lawrence is I think he got demoted to like number 2 quarterback in the next recruiting class, but he was number 1 when Clemson signed him. And Clemson they have so many quarterbacks. So they still have Kelly Bryant. They have Hunter Johnson. They have Tucker Israel somewhere. I think he puts on the vest and does the signal. So will they redshirt him? I don't know. Depends on how quickly he gets into that offense and can grasp it, because he has the talent. I watched his opening high school game, opening weekend, but he has the talent. He's not going to take over for Kelly Bryant, even if he's better. We saw that when Dabo, for some reason, had Deshaun Watson second to Cole Stout. If there's any Clemson fans watching, you remember Cole Stout. And you don't remember him very well unless you think about the Oklahoma game. That's it. Will Louisville bounce back? Probably. Yes. Again, I do think it'll be with a different head coach. Maybe a different quarterback. We'll see. Johnny Bay says, I meant year in and year out, it's a tough Notre Dame schedule. I guess. I don't think it's nearly as tough as Notre Dame fans tend to think it is. It all depends. So Notre Dame, they already have their 2031 schedule. So when they make the schedule, they don't know. You don't know who's going to be good in 2021, let alone 2031. So it's kind of the luck of the draw. There are some years where it looks like a really tough schedule at the end of the year, and you get through the schedule and Notre Dame's 8-4, and it really wasn't that tough anyway. Then there's other years like this year where Notre Dame very well could finish 11-1 at the end of the regular season, and they would have beaten some really good teams. So it all depends. That's the weird thing when you schedule 12 completely different teams, relatively. How likely do you think it is for Notre Dame to go to the ACC? I don't know. My best friend's wife graduated from Notre Dame. She's a legacy. Her entire family went to Notre Dame. They all say no way in hell. I think at some point, if the conference alignment landscape shifts in 2021 when the Big 12's contract runs out, that could change things. But as of right now, I don't see them going to the ACC. They are in the ACC in all other sports except for football and men's hockey. They're in the Big Ten in that now. But I want them in there. Selfishly, I kind of hate independents personally, but no, I don't think they're going to do it. They have too much going for them in their favor in the independent circuit, like they're pro wrestlers. When will Lovie Smith turn it around at Illinois? By the looks of it, when he retires. I'm not quite sure that's going to happen. Who is the best Pac-12 quarterback? That's really tough. I don't know. Right now, it looks like Khalil Tate, doesn't it? Even though he's not really slinging the ball much. Luke Falk keeps getting benched. Sam Darnold keeps turning it over. Maybe Jake Browning. Probably Jake Browning. Pac-12 has always been known for quarterbacks, and you have Josh Rosen in there. I don't know. It's been a really interesting year for the Pac-12. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes not in a good way. Super chat. Hey, thanks. Oh no, I can't scroll up to you. Let me scroll up to you. J-Rock. Love your videos, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. What do you think Nebraska needs to do to get back? Fire Riley and hire Frost? Or is there a better path? Well, firing Riley is the first step, the biggest step, that's the step that matters the most. I was disappointingly stunned when they fired Bo Pelini and hired Mike Riley. I was like, why are you even firing Bo Pelini? Do you really think Mike Riley is the one to take you from 9-4 seasons and get better? I don't think that. I mean, I'm just some dude in South Carolina, but I never believed in Mike Riley. I mean, he did a good enough job at Oregon State keeping his head above water, and that's a really tough job. But I never believed in that hire, and unfortunately, it's pretty much proven true. Scott Frost is going to be a hot commodity this upcoming offseason. He will not be at UCF next year. Obviously, as an alum, as a national champion at Nebraska, I personally think he's going to be waiting for that phone call. But when you have teams like Florida already firing their head coach, they are going to have the jump start unless the AD, who publicly praised Frost the other day, decides to go ahead and kind of start working behind the scenes. But do I think there's a better path? I don't know. Nebraska is a kind of an interesting place to be a head coach because there's so much pressure. Recruiting has some disadvantages. The advantage, obviously, is you're Nebraska. But the disadvantage is it's kind of in the middle. There's not a lot of recruits and pipeline states right around it with a whole lot of talent, in my opinion. So you're going to have to find a dynamic recruiter, a younger person, preferably someone in their late 30s, early 40s, someone that you feel like you can hitch your wagon to for a long time. Mike Riley was never that. I guess still isn't. He's still there. I don't know. I would try. I think Frost would be one of the first people I'd talk to. I wouldn't do any of this nonsense of John Gruden, that kind of a thing. I wouldn't even bother. I would call Frost right now. Don't poach my coach. Yeah, yeah, Kaylin. I think UCF. Did UCF actually say that? Maybe I'm making that up. I thought they tweeted that. OU versus TCU, who wins? Right now, I'm going to go Oklahoma. At this moment, Baker Mayfield, as good as Kenny Hill Jr. can be, if Baker Mayfield, even if he throws 2 picks, if he plays anywhere near the level he did, I'm not sure he'll be quite as up as he was for Bedlam, but if he can play anywhere near the level that he played in Bedlam against TCU, I think Oklahoma's the overall better team. Favorite NCAA football video game? All of them. I never hated a single issue or single edition that I played. What if Nick Saban didn't lie and stayed with the Dolphins? This is more a Bama question than a Dolphin one. I'm going to make that video. I have that video. I have, you guys don't know this, but when I ask you, hey, you have any suggestions for videos like this, leave them down in the comments section. I read through the comments. I try to heart everyone that I see. And I write those down. I take screenshots of them, try to give you guys credit later on. That video is on the docket. I try to spread it out. I have a lot of what-ifs about Alabama. I have a lot of what-ifs about Florida. I have a lot of what-ifs about Michigan. And so it's trying to... I haven't done those in a little while just because these videos take precedent because they're happening in the season. I'm trying to figure out a way, time management-wise, to balance all of those. Some of these books behind me are about time management. I haven't read them because I don't have a lot of time management. But I will get to that this year, I think. It's definitely on the docket. But the short answer is everything would be different. Everything would be different. I'm not even sure who Alabama would have hired in 2007. Will LSU be capable of beating Alabama in the near future? Yeah, I think so. I mean, they could have beaten them last year. There's a couple of these wins that Alabama has in the series against LSU. LSU should have won. In 2014, they had all the momentum in the world. 2012, A.J. McCarron couldn't do anything in that second half. LSU was, I can't remember, it was a fullback or something who busted off like a 60-yard run. That entire stadium, the entire campus was going nuts. And then Alabama won with a screenplay. There was Alabama had no reason to win that game. So yeah, LSU with that game, both teams are always in it all the time. Get another water. Nick asks, can Clemson win the national title again this year with Kelly Bryant? Yeah, they can. I don't think any of the teams in college football right now are what I would call elite. I don't think any of them are up there with the all-time greatest teams. So a lot of those teams in the top 10, they could all beat each other on any given day. So Clemson with a healthy Kelly Bryant, it's interesting to see how much different that offense is without Deshaun Watson, because Watson was much more of a thrower, and I know a lot of Clemson fans were worried about how Kelly Bryant would throw this year. But he's been fine when he's asked to. The last game, not as much, but pouring rain, still a little gimpy. But yeah, they're more than capable of beating Georgia, beating Alabama, depending. When you have a defense like Clemson does, and you can keep them rested and rotating into the second half, you can win a national championship with that defense. I mean, totally different type of team, different type of team. But A.J. McCarron was not the greatest quarterback in the world, no matter what the Browns did when they tried to trade for him. But with Alabama's defense, I mean, he looked like an all-star. Lamar stays at Louisville in 2018, upsets Bama in week 1. Yeah, I'd believe it. I would absolutely believe it. Is JT Daniels going to be the next great USC quarterback? I don't know. USC quarterbacks have been, I mean, even just with the current USC quarterback, there's been ups and downs. So it depends on if the coaching staff can work with him and introduce him, and depending on what the schedule looks like and a bunch of different things. But he certainly, I mean, he has all the tools based on what I've seen. Would FSU be good if DeAndre Francois didn't get injured? They would be better. They would be better. I do think he would still be picking a lot of turf out of his helmet. But having a quarterback like that makes you instantly better. My hips are starting to hurt because I've been sitting at an angle. I apologize if there's any weird sounds with the... There we go. Now I can lean on this. I don't have anything shorter for the microphone. I want the microphone right here and out of the picture, but I can't. All I have is these stools. So now I just have a leaning stool. What is the worst case scenario for the College Football Playoff Committee? For it to say exactly how it is right now. Well, I guess you can't do that. So we'll say undefeated Alabama, 1-loss Georgia, 1-loss Notre Dame, 1-loss Clemson, 1-loss Oklahoma. Is there any other teams I'm forgetting? Is that 6 teams? Yeah, I think that's it. Undefeated Wisconsin. That would be worst case. Indiana McMahon says, "You're awesome, Dustin." Thanks. I appreciate it. Sometimes when I scroll, it jumps all the way down to the bottom. So that's why if I miss questions and stuff, that's why. It jumps and then I don't remember where I was. Lamar Jackson was a one-season wonder, to be honest. His team was better last year. So it's just kind of him this year. He doesn't really have any support. I feel like it almost feels like Lamar Jackson throws the ball up and then runs under it and catches it himself. When Bama and Clemson play, who do you pull for since you're a fan of both? DW4 asks, so I assume this is Deshaun Watson asking. And I'm sorry, DW4. Deshaun Watson. No, when they play, I pull for Bama. Got to pull for my school. Plus, now that Clemson, it was always iffy, and then Clemson got a national championship in my lifetime, which was a childhood goal and dream of mine. And now that they actually have a title, it's definitely Bama. But I want Clemson to do very, very well. Do I remember when UGA played, number 3 Georgia played number 2 Bama in the 2012 SEC Championship game? That game was insane. Yes. Yes, I do. Let me tell you a little story about that game. So, sorry to the Notre Dame fans that I have. I did not believe in Notre Dame that year. They barely beat probably getting this wrong, but a not good Pittsburgh team in like 3 overtimes. They were playing a lot of not great teams very close. And I knew if Alabama played them, we would cream them. I knew it. And Georgia that year was really, really talented. That was Todd Gurley, Aaron Murray, Chris Conley. Yeah, that was a really good team. And I knew that was the national championship game. And I was a manager at Joe's Crab Shack. And my boss scheduled me for that night because it was a Saturday night game. It was like 5 o'clock is the SEC championship. And I told him, I said, if you schedule me for that day, I'm not working. I'm just going to sit there and watch the game at the bar. That's exactly what I did. I would walk around the floor once and talk to one table and then come back to the bar and watch the game. I did not care. I remember that game very fondly. When Georgia blocked that field goal and ran it back to go up, I think 21-10, I thought that was the end of the game. And I could not believe that they did not spike the ball at the end. See, it just went down again. How do I feel about Gamecocks quarterback Jake Bentley? I think Jake Bentley is very good. It helps when your dad is on the offensive staff there. And he used to be a really successful head coach at Burns, which is right down the road from me. I think he is getting there. He's still really young. He gave up his prom to come to US. Well, not USC. Sorry, in South Carolina we call it USC. But he gave up his last semester of high school to enroll early at South Carolina. I think he's good. I still think he's developing. I still think he's, Deebo Samuel's going down hurts. He doesn't have as many weapons as I'm sure he would like to have, but I don't believe in Will Muschamp. I don't trust Will Muschamp. He's given me no reason to feel that way. But I do think Bentley's development will be interesting to watch down the road. And I think him getting the crap beat out of him at Clemson last year, after a pretty successful freshman year, when he was kind of battling back and forth with, was it McElwain? It was McElwain, wasn't it? Brandon McElwain? I feel like I'm making that up. But the top recruit out of Penn State, when they were battling it out, and then he won it, and he got the crap knocked out of him in the Clemson game. I think that was good, to have that experience, to see the best defense that you can see at the time, and to grow from that. UCF playoffs? Nope. Not that UCF isn't a really good team. I just don't quite see that happening. In the next 3 years, is Major Applewhite a Power 5 head coach? We'll see. He still has... he's been around forever. He was Alabama's offensive coordinator, I believe. Former Texas quarterback. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the American. I don't think he's going to skyrocket the way Tom Herman did, but I could be wrong about that. But in the next 3 years, is he a Power 5 head coach? I can absolutely see that, especially like the Mountain West, like that kind of a level. Absolutely. Again, I don't know if he would even want a job like that. In my opinion, build up Houston and then get a really good job. What if Cam Newton didn't steal a computer and stayed at Florida? I actually, is it next week? I think it's next Wednesday. I have planned a video very similar to that. It's not what if he'd stayed at Florida, but it's what if he went to Mississippi State. Do you think the Michigan State Spartans are the most underrated team so far this season because of how they were looked at prior to the 2017 season, only being projected to go 7-6. I think the turnaround that D'Antonio had this year after going 3-9 last year is crazy. I didn't give them a whole lot of hope. I certainly didn't have them beating Penn State. I mean, even last weekend, I didn't see them beating Penn State. They beat Michigan, they beat Penn State, and they have a chance to beat Ohio State and basically kind of win the East this weekend. That loss to Northwestern was brutal. But yeah, I think they lost to Northwestern. I hope so, because I said it just now and I don't want to look dumb. But most underrated team from the beginning of the year to now, absolutely. There's a chance he could end up getting Big Ten Coach of the Year. I could see that happening. Or Pat Fitzgerald, who keeps overperforming in Northwestern. But yeah, what is going on at East Lansing this year has been fun, because I did not expect that to happen. Should Georgia Tech fire Paul Johnson and then 3 little bees? Bzz, bzz, bzz. Should they fire him? I kind of think of that as the same way as Kevin Sumlin at A&M. It's just time. It's just time. It's not that he's bad. He's still a very good coach. It's not that Georgia Tech hates him. But I do think it is probably time for them to kind of mutually separate and for him to go find something else, and for Georgia Tech to... It's going to be such a hard transition no matter who Georgia Tech gets next, because they've had this same offense for 10 years now. So for them to move into anything else, even a pro-style offense, would almost be really difficult with Taquan Marshall there. He fits this style so well. But I do think it's probably time to make the separation. Once you leave Russell Athletic, you should just relieve Paul Johnson too. As a Notre Dame fan, I'm much more worried about Navy. You should beat Navy. I would have been more worried about Navy a couple of weeks ago. You should beat Navy, but you know how Navy is. Friday, by the way, I know you don't want to hear this, but Friday was the 10-year anniversary of them snapping the streak. Do you think that teams on the West Coast have less of a chance to win the Heisman than an East Coast player? Yes. One, there's just so much more competition on the East Coast, in the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten, and I know the Big 12 isn't the East Coast, but they're only a time zone behind in most cases in the Central Time Zone. They all get primetime games. They all, Big 12 plays at 12, at 3:30, and at 8 o'clock most weeks. Same with the ACC and mostly the SEC. They play at like 7 on ESPN 2 or whatever. But yeah, I think they have less of a chance to win the Heisman because less people see them. Because for some reason, ESPN doesn't go, oh, there's this huge marquee matchup, Arizona and USC. There's this huge marquee matchup. Let's put it on at 8 o'clock. No, they go, let's put it on at 8 o'clock LA time. Well, okay, I'm awake. I love football, so I'm awake watching it. But Joe Schmo isn't up. So when they see that Arizona lost by 2 touchdowns to USC, they go, oh, well, Arizona's not that good. They don't see that it was tied 35-35 with like 4 minutes to go in the game. So, yeah, I do think it hurts. I think that's part of the reason why Sam Darnold is still regarded so highly, even though he's turned the ball over more than any other quarterback in the country this year. People just remember him from last year and don't get a chance to see him play as much. And there was that whole thing with Washington, and that certainly hurt That certainly hurt Jake Browning's Heisman candidacy earlier in the season when Washington just hated ESPN, and ESPN kept putting them at 10:45 my time. It's really hard when, because if you remember how the Heisman vote is broken up, it's broken up by Midwest, Southeast, Northeast, and West, I think. I think that's how it's broken up. So it's almost impossible for somebody on the West Coast to win the Southeast region's votes. It's just not going to happen. Clemson became defensive weapons and underrated offense. I agree with that. Do I actually think Bryce Love is better than Josh Adams? So I was on the Bryce Love train. I don't like saying love train. I was on Bryce's train. That doesn't sound good either. I was on the Stanford running back train pretty early in the season. So maybe I have a slight bias towards that. Josh Adams is absolutely electric. But when I watch Notre Dame games, I'm also paying attention to Brandon Wimbush. With Stanford, it's kind of just Bryce Love. And I think that's where, in my mind, if it's like a pie chart, he just takes up so much more of my attention than Josh Adams does. By the way, any Notre Dame fans, what is going on with Josh Adams? Like, if you watched my Heisman video earlier today, which you should have, if you watched that video, I talk about Brian. I cannot get comfortable. I talk about Brian Kelly. I feel like I'm laying down, no matter how I sit. I talked about how Brian Kelly talked about Josh Adams not having a concussion, but just being tired because of exams. And I even admitted in the video I may be getting that wrong because I read it and didn't see it, but that seems really stupid. But do I actually think Bryce Love is better than Josh Adams? They're very similar. Yards per carry. Neither of them are really receiving backs. They're very similar, actually. Do I think Jalen Hurts would have a better shot getting into the NFL as a halfback? I don't know. I haven't actually thought about that. He still has a lot of development to do as far as throwing the ball. But I guess in your mind, Jessica, you're probably thinking about like Denard Robinson. And I don't think he's quite that dynamic of a runner as old One Shoes was. Any thoughts on Oregon? Any thoughts on Oregon's future? Bright. I really believe in that coaching staff. I love Willie Taggart. I love Jim Leavitt. So, bright. I lost my place again. Because, of course, I did. And it's gone. I just can't get back. What do I think Riley Ferguson's pro potential is? I think it's pretty high. He looks like an NFL quarterback. I don't know his height. I don't know his measurements off the top of my head. But watching him play, he looks like an NFL quarterback. Even if he isn't that good, which I do think he's very good. But even if he isn't that good, I think just the prototype in my mind that I have of him, that he would still be like a top 3-round pick. Will the American become a power conference someday? I have been seeing this question pop up a lot in the comment sections. People have been asking me to make a video about that. It's interesting. There's that whole Power 6 movement going on, POW6R. I don't see it. I just don't. I think that the Power 5 have it kind of locked down, and the American lost its chance when we left the BCS system and they got locked out. And I don't know what would constitute it getting back in. In the BCS, there was like a criteria for moving up and getting an automatic BCS berth. I don't know if that is the case in the playoff as far as the New Year's Six Bowls, but I may be wrong about that. I don't see it ever happening. As good as some of those teams have been, South Florida this year, Houston the last year or two, I just don't quite see it happening. Do you remember the 2011 number 1 LSU versus number 2 Alabama game? I do. It was my last game as a student at UA. We lost 9-6. We missed like 4 field goals in that game. It's dumb. Will Jacob Eason transfer to Miami? I don't know. That is interesting. I don't know. Obviously, probably want to be with Mark Richt, but I don't know. Why have you made all my video ideas? I don't know. Maybe you ask great questions, Elijah. What is your favorite game of all time? The NCAA games. I don't really think that's shocking. If you don't want to count that, I was a history major in college, and I absolutely loved the Game of War or God of War series, 1, 2, and 3. I don't have a PS4 anymore, so I can't get God of War 4 when it comes out. It's about like the Nordic stuff, so I don't really care about that much anyway. But yeah, God of War I loved. Dang, Dustin. What time is it where you live? I'm freaking winded and you seem wide awake. It's 11:27 right now. I'm on the East Coast. Well, I'm in South Carolina, so Eastern time zone. I'm a night owl. Born and bred a night owl. I guess bred. That's kind of weird to think about. You should do a what if Nick Saban went to Texas after they fired Mac Brown. That was a really big rumor at the time. And a lot of people have said it was really close to happening. So that's an interesting idea. What if Charlie Weiss was a good coach for Notre Dame? I can't even picture that, sir. Can't even imagine it. Do I think Miami can make the Final Four? Yeah, if they go undefeated and they beat Notre Dame and they beat Clemson and they're sitting there at 13-0 in the ACC champions, I think they're in. They'll probably, Clemson's number 4 right now, so you think they would supplant them because they would have, depending on how the East goes in the Big Ten, they would probably have a better schedule and better wins than Wisconsin would. How did Ole Miss drop from really good to crap? Well, here's what I'll say. Hugh Freeze was a good coach. Not a good person. He didn't go by the rules, but he's a good coach. And he recruited a lot of players and a lot of NFL talent, and they all fit his scheme pretty well. And when those players left in his initial 1 or 2 recruiting cycles, I'm not quite sure he quite replaced them, though I do like Shea Patterson before he got injured. But I don't think he quite replaced them the way the initial load was. And part of that is when you stop paying players. In my humble opinion, when you stop paying them, they don't come. And I think he paid or made some kind of arrangement for some of those early players. All right, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I'm getting kind of behind on the questions. Is Ohio State overrated? To be honest, that is still out. The jury's still out for me. There's a chance that they are the most overrated team in the country, and there's a chance they're a really good team that just messes up once or twice, and it costs them. Where do you think SMU would be if they didn't get that death penalty and their football program didn't get screwed? Do you think they would be good? I'm going to make a video on that too at the end of this month. What if SMU didn't get the death penalty? But short answer, you're not going to like this. There's a chance they're in the Big 12. Apparently, Nick Saban recruited Lamar Jackson as a cornerback and not a quarterback. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Who was it? One of the LSU defensive players this weekend, CBS showed a graphic with him talking about it. Apparently, he said that when Nick Saban came to recruit him and knew it was kind of between Alabama and LSU, he said, why don't you come to Alabama? We don't want to have to beat you year in and year out down at LSU. I would love to be a fly on the wall of some of these recruiting talks when coaches crap on other coaches. In your opinion, which college football team has the best jerseys? I assume you mean best regular jerseys, like the ones they wear week in and week out. Obviously, I love Oregon's color scheme, like the Kelly green and the yellow, not the darker green as much. There's a lot of really good ones. I really like the plainness of Alabama and Penn State. I really like Arizona State's when it's that maroon and gold. I love the powder blue of UCLA. I really like Florida's uniforms. I've always liked that blue and orange and how much it jumps out at you. I like Miami's green uniforms with white bottoms. Yeah, I kind of want to make a video on that, but I think we'll save that till the off season when I can try to figure out, because I can't do clips of stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to put pictures in there. Navy, as a Notre Dame fan, scares the hell out of me with flex bonus hard to stop. Yeah, it is. I mean, but luckily it's like Clemson and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech beat Clemson a lot in the first few years under Dabo, including his first game, but kind of have a feel for it now. And I feel like Notre Dame and Navy play every year, so it won't be that crazy. Hopefully Brian Kelly and company do some stuff in the offseason to prepare for that game the way Clemson does. What is my favorite game of all time? It's the greatest game that's ever been played, 2006 Rose Bowl. USC, Texas, the storylines going into that game, the talent that was on the field, the storybook ending, absolutely amazing. Bryce's love train. Yeah, I didn't like saying that. Prediction for Georgia Auburn. I'm gonna go Georgia. It's at Auburn, and like I'm starting to have flashbacks for Auburn of the 2013 season where they like had that tip to themselves to beat Alabama. I'm sorry, to beat Georgia, and then the kick six to beat Alabama, like some weird things. But again, Auburn already has 2 losses. But if Auburn can keep the ball on the ground and wear down Georgia's defense, they definitely have a shot. I think TCU has the best jerseys and chrome helmets. I don't like the chrome helmets as much. I like the purple helmets, but I really like the black helmets with like the purple trim for TCU. Maryland has some of the best jerseys, really slept on. Disagree. Oh, jerseys, I don't know. I always like focus on their helmet. I don't like their helmets. Their helmets remind me of like airbrushed like Panama City t-shirts. It looks too fake. Oh no, it skipped all the way to the bottom again. What if Notre Dame wins the Bush Push game? That's interesting. This is my first live stream, and I don't know how much you guys watch YouTube and follow actual YouTubers, but when this is over, the live chat disappears. Everything you were writing is gone and will never be seen again. So for questions like that, I really like that, Cole, and I want to give you credit for it. So come back to this video. It'll take probably a couple hours to render. So come back in the morning and you'll find this video again. It'll still be on my channel. And write that question in the comment section. I can take a screenshot because that's one I would like to at least take a look at. Not a question, but I comment on all your vids. You're my favorite YouTuber. Would donate if I could. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You don't have to donate. Just watch and hang out. Do you think Notre Dame should join the Big Ten? Yes. Selfishly. I don't know about now. I really don't like 14-team conferences. I really don't like 16-team conferences. So maybe not now. The ship has probably sailed. But they are so perfect to be in the Big Ten. I think I made a video on that too. What if Notre Dame joined the Big Ten a couple months ago? So you can check out the playlist of the What If videos, and should be able to find that. Breaking news: Jim Harbaugh just got fired. I don't believe you. Wouldn't that be some stuff? Would the national championship be held at the Rose Bowl every year? I think so. I think if you ask most people in college football, most would be okay with that. I would kind of be okay with that too. The Rose Bowl is one of those games that I've always wanted to go to my whole life. Who wins a college football playoff in 1990? Better come back to this video again, Cole, and write what if there was a college football playoff in 1990. Georgia Tech, Washington would have been fun. Prediction for SMU and Memphis. That is a really big game for the West, for the American West. I hate calling it the American West because I think about Wild Wild West, but that's a really big game. I do trust Riley Ferguson. But SMU, man, SMU, when they sacked UCF's quarterback back at like the 45, there was a chance that they could have beaten unbeaten UCF. Sorry, Caitlin. But I do think Memphis probably wins that game. I don't know where that game is. Is it in Dallas or is it in Memphis? Where should Miami be ranked when they beat Notre Dame? First off, love the confidence. Second, if Miami beats Notre Dame, they'll be right there at the 4 or 5. Because Oklahoma TCU will have already... I think Oklahoma TCU is this weekend, right? So that would already be decided. Auburn, Georgia, maybe. If Auburn were to win, that would already be decided. Bowl predictions. I would love to do bowl predictions, but the way the bowls are set up is so crazy. Like, I wanted to do a bowl predictions video at the beginning of the year that I knew would be wrong, but it would just be fun. And I may do that next year, but I just don't understand it, to be honest with you. Like, there are some bowl games where it's like ACC number 3/4/5/6/7. What does that mean? I don't like that. I like ACC 1 goes to the Orange Bowl, ACC 2 goes to the Russell Athletic, ACC 3 goes to the Peach. Like, I miss the old way. It used to be a lot less complicated. But I would love to do bowl predictions. I know like ESPN and SB Nation, all these do bowl predictions every week, and God bless them. That just seems like a lot of work. Should the college football playoff expand? In my opinion, yeah. I want 8 teams. And I know a lot of people hate that, but a lot of people hated the idea of 4 teams too, and it's fun. Excited for Catholics versus convicts? Very much. I think that is a really fun game. I think it's unfair that Miami gets Virginia Tech and Notre Dame in back-to-back weeks at home. I'm glad to see that people care again. You remember like 2 years ago, it was like Miami versus FIU, and 5 minutes before kickoff, there was like 3,000 or 4,000 people in the stands. It looked really bad. I'm glad. I don't want to call Miami fans fair-weathered, because there's a lot of great Miami fans out there, but I'm glad that that people care now. Would Jeff Brom leave Purdue if it says Pacino? I think he meant Petrino. Petrino's fired. I'm going to go with it. Would Jeff Brom leave Purdue if Al Pacino is fired from Louisville and go coach them because it's his alma mater? I think if Bobby Petrino leaves, that Jeff Brom will get a phone call. He almost beat Louisville this year. And once again, I lost my place. So I apologize to anybody that I'm skipping. If Wisconsin and Clemson win their championship and Notre Dame wins out, will Notre Dame make it in? Yes. The committee is really crazy about certain teams. Ohio State, Miami, Alabama. I said Miami. I meant Notre Dame. Still in the last question. Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC, Alabama. If those teams are anywhere near it, they're going to try to find a way to get them in. My opinion, of course. Is Notre Dame a better fit for the ACC or the Big Ten? The Big Ten. They have so much in common with teams like Michigan and Michigan State. Way more than they do like Miami and Clemson. And of course you have like Purdue and Indiana and Northwestern. They just make way more sense than the Big Ten. Thoughts on Texas this season? Texas is doing about what I thought they would do under Tom Herman in year 1. They've kind of shuffled back around with quarterbacks a little bit because of injuries and things. Still disappointed in them for losing that Maryland game, but first game, new personnel, I guess I get it. They beat Iowa State, which is surprisingly a good win, but they're about on pace where I thought they would be right about now. As long as they get to a bowl game, maybe go 7-5, 8-5, even 8, 7-6. I still think that's kind of a success. They haven't been to a bowl game in the last few years, so I definitely think that's a success. And next year you can start eyeing for the 8 and 9 wins. Ideal number of teams for the playoffs? For me, it's 8. A lot of people don't like that, but I think 8 is the best number. Do I think Wimbush will be a top 5 Heisman watch next year because he will probably evolve into a better player over the offseason? Yeah. Notre Dame is going to get so much hype coming into next season. It's going to be crazy. What if there was a playoff for the 2007 season? That's the one year where we probably need like a 64-team playoff. Just 128 teams. Put every single team in a playoff. 2 loss, LSU won. They lost to Kentucky in overtime. 3 overtimes. Why can't the SEC East keep up with the West historically? Well, when you start throwing around the word historically, like I said earlier in the stream, you may have missed it, the East in the 90s was it. Like the late 90s, the SEC East was it, for at least my perception of it. So historically they have, but over the last year, Nick Saban changed everything. When Nick Saban got there, you have to remember Florida was at the top of the world Florida couldn't be touched. You did have Auburn in 2004, but Georgia won the SEC title in 2005. Florida won it in 2006. LSU won in 2007, but that doesn't count. 2007 was such a wacky year. Florida won in 2008, beating Alabama, and then once Nick Saban got going in 2009, it's been all West all the time. Worst penalty of all time, I say the Miami versus Ohio State championship, #Go Canes. It's up there. I watched that live. I never thought that it was pass interference. I've never seen anything in replays that have shown it as pass interference. Again, Cole George, what if Miami played OU in the national championship in 2000 instead of FSU? When this live stream ends, put that down in the comments. Like, come back to this video in the morning and put that down in the comments. Do you think Houston still has a chance to win the American? I don't. I think it's going to be Memphis out of the West. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember if Memphis and Houston have played each other. I do not think they have. But I do think it'll probably be Memphis coming out of the West. What do you think about Northern Illinois in the past? They had some really good teams. What was their quarterback? Jordan Lynch? The Orange Bowl team. They had some really good teams. I think they went 12-0 that year before losing in the Orange Bowl. How long do you think it'll be before Texas makes the playoffs? Little antsy, are we? Little antsy, Texas fans. Probably 2 or 3 years, but who knows? I mean, we've seen crazier turnarounds in history than what Texas has to do. What if Arkansas joined the Big 8 instead of the SEC? They should have. I think they have more in common than they do with their SEC brethren, but I also think Missouri belongs in the Big 10, so I don't really know. What do you think about Iowa State? Ever since they got that backup quarterback, it was incredible. I know they lost to West Virginia. In West Virginia, that's a tough place to play. Norman is tougher, but that's a tough place to play. I think what they've been able to do has been really impressive. And I think, did you see Kirk Herbstreit tweet out about Iowa State's coach? And he was like, yeah, if you need a coach, come get him. And Iowa State was like, no, please don't. Please leave us alone. I thought that was pretty funny. But I think what Iowa State's managed to do this year is really remarkable. It's the best year I've seen Iowa State do in my memory. There's a chance that the Cyclones are going to go 8-4. It's pretty big. I haven't looked at their schedule, so don't kill me. I got a really itchy nose. Don't kill me if they have like the 3 toughest games left. I can't remember off the top of my head. What do you do to fix the dumpster fire in Gainesville? Get a quarterback. Getting a durable, non-injured quarterback would have fixed every single thing. If Will Grier didn't transfer, we would not be talking about this right now. When will Mike Stoops get fired? I don't know. Kentucky is a strange place, and I think he is doing as good of a job as almost anybody could there. I know that may hurt some people, some Kentucky fans, but I think that's about as good as... Not about as good as you can hope for, but if he had one Randall Cobb, it would change some things down there, up there. Hell no. 4 is pushing it. Playoff start week 1. That is a sentiment that I hear a lot. I completely agree that college football has a unique opportunity, unlike every other sport that I can think of. Every game matters so much. And the idea is if we go to 8 teams, it'll water it down, and it won't matter quite as much. Yes, that's true. Kind of. there's also no other than college basketball, which has 68 teams getting their playoff, which obviously I don't want that, but no other game are there so many teams and you play so few games. So if you have five, say Notre Dame's undefeated, you have 6 undefeated Power 5 teams. Say Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, USC, and Notre Dame. How can you tell? I guess Notre Dame and USC wouldn't be. Washington and Notre Dame. How do you know who's the best 4? You can do metrics. You could do, look at the same opponents and all that, but they may only have 2 or 3 opponents together, if that. And that's only because Notre Dame schedules as an independent. So I think, a lot of people think that if you finish 8th, you have no right to the national championship. It would have been interesting to see what Utah could have done in 2009. It would have been interesting to see what Boise could have done in 2006. I don't know. I think there's... I've seen people talk about the 8 championship, and if you win the Power 5 championship for your conference, you're automatically in. Then you do the highest ranked group of 5 team, and then you have 2 at-large bids. Honestly, I wouldn't put the group of 5 team in there. I think you should just have 3 at-large bids, and if a group of 5 team is undefeated and in the top 8, have at it, put them in. But starting to lose my voice a little bit, so I may have to cut this off in a minute. Well, I've been going 2 hours. That's nuts. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even read this question, or this comment. GM Sedets? I know I'm not saying that right. 8-team college football playoff with 1 team is the highest group of 5 team. See, there you go. Do you think Renfro will be huge steal in the NFL? Reminds me of Patriots receivers. Yeah, my cousin played high school football at Dorman in Spartanburg, and my aunt will never accept the fact that Hunter Renfro. Oh my God, who's the wide receiver? Adam Humphries played at Dorman with my cousin, and she'll never get over the fact that Adam Humphries is in the NFL. I think Hunter Renfro will be like that, and he'll be sure-handed. He'll go as like a 5th-round draft pick because of his size, but man, can that guy catch? I mean, any 3rd and 7, just throw it to Renfro anywhere around him. That dude will catch it. Thoughts on the 5th down? That's another video that I already have planned. I haven't done the what if, so I have a lot of them backlogged. And I just lost my place again. You demand. I hope you're talking about me, in which case, thanks. Who do you think wins if Notre Dame Clemson goes into overtime in 2015? Notre Dame. I was at that game. Absolutely drenched and cold. It was not fun. I didn't enjoy being in that game. But other than the beginning, after that, Clemson played a very conservative. I thought Clemson was the better team in the game. They played a very conservative offensive scheme. Deshaun Watson had, I think, 84 yards passing. So they were not about to put that ball in the air. And Notre Dame made that huge comeback in the 4th quarter. I think it was 21-9. And it was 24-22 when they tried for the 2-point conversion and didn't get it. Notre Dame had, I don't know if it came across on TV, Notre Dame had all of the momentum in that game. And if that game goes into overtime, I have no doubt in my mind, with the way Clemson was play calling, very conservatively, the momentum that Notre Dame had, and not Zaire, the way Kaiser was playing, Notre Dame wins. Should Les Miles get back to coaching? Yes. Yes, he should. I'm waiting. I selfishly want to see him take over the Ole Miss job and play LSU every year. I think that would be funny. When will Kentucky beat Florida? I have no idea. This was the year. This was absolutely the year. When will Saban get the boot? When he breaks his foot. It's the only boot that guy's getting. Nick Saban. If Nick Saban wanted to change Alabama's mascot to the Dancing Penguins, I'm pretty sure next year we would all be rooting for the Alabama Dancing Penguins. That's how much influence I think that guy has. My first year at Alabama was his first year at Alabama, and when I graduated, it was an entirely different campus. He helped build that whole campus. What do I think about Elon and New Hampshire? I'm sorry, I don't know much. I'm sorry about that. I don't have time. I don't have like the mental bandwidth to follow up on FCS teams that often. I keep up with like James Madison. That's where my cousin that played at Dorman, his coach, Mike Houston, is at James Madison. I keep up with them a little bit. Keep up with North Dakota State, but not really. I kept up with Wofford. They were up to number 5 before they lost to Samford. So Elon versus New Hampshire, I just don't know enough. Elon's in North Carolina, so I guess I'm rooting for them. But would there have ever been a bad pass interference call if Willis McGahee did not get injured? I don't know. That's I can't really make a video on it because it's just one game that would probably influence. But if Willis McGahee did not get injured in that 2003 BCS title game, I mean, I think Miami wins. I'm not a Miami fan. I never grew up loving Miami, but I was kind of devastated when he got injured because he was so good. They're saying that Auburn could wreck the SEC's 2-team in the playoff hopes. I think if Auburn somehow gets into the playoff, a second SEC team, being Bama, also gets in. Thoughts? A lot of chaos would have to happen outside of the SEC for Auburn to get in. If they beat Georgia and beat Alabama, they would have lost a close game on the road at Clemson. They would have the best 2-loss team case based on if you project it out right now. But I still think the winner... So if Auburn wins out, that assumes that Auburn is in the SEC championship game. They would have had to have beaten Georgia twice. That's a hell of a resume. It just depends on what they look like against the other one-loss teams. How many one-loss teams are there? There's a chance that we could only end up with like one-loss team and one undefeated team, and everybody else has 2 losses. That's certainly possible. You have to kind of do a little bit of a diagram in your head, but it's possible. In that case, I think Auburn gets in. I still think Boise State should have played Bama in the title game. It would have been fun to see Boise play a couple big boys in a playoff situation. If you play FCS, disqualified from national title contention. Aren't you? Unless you're talking about the FCS. I don't know. Go Dancing Penguins. Yeah, drop down on me. Les Miles to coach Tennessee. Sure. That'd be fun. Still gets to play Alabama every year. Donald Trump checking out by Trump. Does Kansas have a chance to beat Texas again? I didn't think they'd beat them last year. So, yes, but probably not. Kentucky just beat Florida this year, though. No, not in football. They lost 28-27. They gave up 2 easy touchdowns to Florida, where Kentucky just wasn't paying attention to a wide receiver. They should have beaten Florida. Go Dancing Penguins. That's right. Go Dancing Penguins. Should Nebraska go back to the option? Hey, man. What they're doing now ain't working. That's all I'm going to say. Although, if they get somebody like Frost, they won't do that. But it worked in the past, but the head coach back then was the AD now, so he can't really call the plays. Who do I think will be the first Group of 5 team to go to the playoff? I don't know. I think you're going to have the history to do it. So Houston, Boise, they have the history to do it. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe a Navy because they would have to beat Notre Dame. I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting. It'll happen. Even if we keep it at 4 teams, eventually, not just like mathematics and probability, but eventually in the next 30 or 40 years, it'll probably happen. Is Tennessee cursed? If you watched my top 10 urban legends video, yes. They built a bridge over an Indian burial ground. So yeah, they're very cursed. What if Cole McCoy never got injured against Alabama in the '09 championship game? That's also going to be a video. I'm going to do a video on if Cole McCoy didn't get hurt against Alabama and if his pass didn't take an extra second against Nebraska in the Big 12 championship game that year. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do first, but excuse me, indigestion. But if you come back to this video and leave that as a question, I can give you credit for it, even though I'd actually already thought about it. I'll still give you credit. Why won't Alabama play home and home series in non-conference? It doesn't make sense. Like, as a football fan, I love that idea. But Alabama has a very specific formula for how they play games, how they set their schedule up. They open up in a huge game against a non-conference team in a neutral site. I mean, they do have Duke coming up, so like not every year is that big of a deal, but that's how they start. Then they like to play 2 group of 5 teams. This year it was Colorado State and Fresno State. Then they get into the SEC schedule. They used to always open up against Arkansas, and the last couple years has been against Ole Miss. They play 6 SEC games. They have their bye week the last week in October. They play LSU to open up November. Then they play Miss State. Then an FCS team, usually somewhere around the area, Mercer, UT Chattanooga, Georgia Southern, back when they were in the FCS, teams like that. Never like Alabama State in their own state, which just annoys me. And then they finish up at Auburn. They have a very specific formula, and it's worked out for them. It may not be the most entertaining all the time, because I would like to see Alabama at Oklahoma, but under Saban, this is the way they are going to do it. At least that's my opinion on it. Ooh. What if in 2014 TCU didn't get snubbed and went in over Ohio State? I think TCU won. I think TCU wins the national championship. I thought that at the time. I thought they were the best team. I thought them. I would have put TCU in as number 4, selfishly, but Navy coach would be good in Nebraska. Yeah, if you're going to put that old system in there, that old Osborne option, the wishbone or whatever, I don't know the official name, but yeah, if you're going to put that option in there in Nebraska, I got an itchy nose, man. Navy's coach would be a good one. Better college quarterback, Cam Newton or Tim Tebow? That is a really good question. That is a really good question. Your likes are blowing out your dislikes 71-1. That's what I like to see. Cam Newton or Tim Tebow? Come back after this video is like officially posted and leave that as a comment. That is the video I would like to make. Cam Newton only had 1 year and Tebow had all 4, but what a year that was. That is... Ooh, I really like that video idea. You've been working out? You look good. No, I haven't, but thank you. Do you think Florida State will have a 10-plus... It says FSU. I'm assuming you don't mean Fresno State. Will have a 10-plus win season next year with a full strength DeAndre Francois and a more experienced Cam Akers with hopefully a new defense coordinator and O-line coach. I mean, yeah. 10-win season, I don't know now. If you'd asked me that in August, yeah, obviously. Now, I don't know. Even with a new line coach, you're still going to have a little bit of a talent gap, it seems like. Hopefully the recruiting trail is changing that this year. I assume that's a huge point of emphasis when Jimbo's going out and talking to people. Cam Akers is a beast. He's great. He's really fun to watch, and he's only going to get better. Francois changes things. If Francois is in the picture, Florida State's probably at least a 5-3 team right now instead of 3-5. But again, Francois still would he would still get a lot of green on his jersey. But 10 plus wins, I don't know. Miami is still a really good team. They will be for years to come, it looks like. At least Canes fans hope so. Clemson will always be a really good team under Dabo. I don't know. That'll be interesting. Florida State is going to be one of those really, like, other than teams with a new coach next year, Florida State's going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch. See how they bounce back. Because this year is the most disappointing Florida State year I've seen in my lifetime. Did you know that former UTEP head coach Mike Price almost got the job in Alabama before Nick Saban? Yes. Let me make sure this is the right guy I'm talking about. Is this the strip? Did Mike Price not get it because of a strip club? Wasn't that Mike Price? Internet's loading. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't get it because of a strip club. What a dummy. Yeah, I did know that. It wasn't before Nick Saban. It was 2003. Yeah, 2003. So he got it before Mike Shula. What if Tennessee completed the Hail Mary against Kentucky? Not much would change. Butch Jones' seat would be like 3 degrees cooler. What do you think of the controversy? Oh no, where'd it go? Where do you think of the controversy of the... I saw it. I don't remember who it was. The 2008 Big 12 South controversy. That was fun. That was a really stupid year for that division. And that's one of the times where I think that's why the Big 12 is like, we're not doing divisions. We'll just take the best 2 teams. Because Texas Tech beat Texas on the Crabtree return. Texas beat Oklahoma in... I almost said Bedlam. In Red River Shootout. Well, Red River rivalry now. And then Oklahoma, I think they killed Texas Tech. I don't even think that game was close. And then Oklahoma won the tiebreaker because of the higher BCS ranking, I believe, and made it in and got to play Florida for the national championship. Would you want Alabama to go to Notre Dame for a non-conference game? Absolutely. To me, Alabama and Notre Dame are the exact opposite of college football teams. You have the academics first Catholic school in the Midwest in Notre Dame. You have the wild, Alabama's full of Protestants, but you have the red-blooded Americans down in Alabama that it's football first and everything else is behind football. So they are diametrically opposed to each other. And having a home and home, oh man. Alabama, I can tell you, Alabama hates Notre Dame and Notre Dame hates Alabama. So those would be pretty hostile environments. What's a home and home series you want to see? Selfishly, I've always wanted to see Clemson and Michigan. They've never played each other, and I think it would be really cool to see Clemson and Michigan play each other. Oklahoma, Ohio State before these last 2 years would have been up there. USC, Texas would have been up there before this year. I think next year. I miss Nebraska, Oklahoma. Texas A&M. Kansas, Missouri. Some of those that we lost would kind of fill that void now. Ray should stick to number 21. Yeah, he did better at that than he did his 34 jersey. What's your favorite team from Utah? I actually don't dislike any team from Utah. Utah State is the little brother of the 3, so maybe the Aggies. I really, whenever I watch those games, BYU, Utah, and Utah State, I don't really root for any teams. I just sit back and watch. So I don't. Favorite team is I mean, I guess I would say Utah State, but it's only because they are not as historically good as the other two. What if Ohio State was eligible for the 2012 title game? That would have been fun. It would have been Ohio State Notre Dame. But that would have been fun. That would have been a good year for a playoff too, 2012. Who is the scariest team left for Notre Dame to play? Before the last week or two, I probably would have said Stanford. But with the way Stanford's playing now and the way Miami's playing now, I think the Hurricanes, especially traveling across the country, that's always tough. Especially on like 18, 19-year-old kids. Best non-Power 5 team of all time. I don't know. That's tough. Probably maybe 2004 Utah, 2009 Utah. That Pittsburgh team with Larry Fitzgerald was really good. Because the idea of a Power 5 only came around the last 4 years. Before that, it was BCS and non-BCS. And then before that, it was 1A and 1AA. And before that, it was just teams. Before 1978. Tommy Frazier better than Cam Newton, better than Tim Tebow. Tommy Frazier had a very unique set of skills. Cam Newton and Tim Tebow could both air it out. Cam more than Tim. It's weird calling them by their first names. Newton more than Tebow. Tommy Frazier, for what he was asked to do, like, dude didn't get sacked for all of the 95 season. It's crazy. Should Riley Ferguson be in the Heisman conversation? He is in my videos. At least the bubble. Best college football play-by-play announcer? Easiest question I've ever been asked in my entire life. Keith Jackson. Keith Jackson could... A fly could be trapped in a room, and Keith Jackson could make that the most exciting and entertaining thing of all time. I miss that guy. That was another thing with the 06 Rose Bowl with USC and Texas, that was Keith Jackson's last call. I miss that guy. Legitimately miss him. He was like the voice. He was like college football's voice for me. The likes versus dislikes is the Michigan versus Rutgers from last year. Yeah, we're about there. Yeah, 78. We would have been there. If somebody didn't dislike it and liked it instead, we'd be there. Do you think Missouri can make a bowl with the confidence they have built up? They still have Tennessee. They still have Vandy. So I think Missouri is 3-5. No, there's no way. What's Missouri's record right now? I know they have 2 games there. They're very winnable. What is their record? Maybe it's 4-5. Yeah, they can certainly still make the playoffs. Did I say playoffs? I did not. I'm tired. I've been doing this for like 2 hours, 20 minutes or something. They could definitely make a bowl game. And I think making a bowl game would be a big win for them. All right. The best non-Power 5 is Notre Dame by far. Nice. I count them as a Power 5 team, but it's funny that some people don't. I think that's funny. J-Rock said 2007 Boise State. Do I think Clemson deserved the 4th seed? When you compare strength of loss, Clemson's to Syracuse, OU's to Iowa State, and Ohio State's... No, I don't. I have Clemson like number 10 right now. What's the year during the BCS era you would have wanted to have a playoff for the most? There's a lot you could say. 2003, 2007, 2011, every 4 years. 2012 would have been fun. 2000 would have been fun. Should have always had a playoff. Like, if we would have always had an 18 playoff, nobody would think it would be dumb. That's the weird thing. Like, if there's always been an 18 playoff, there would be people like clamoring for 16 teams. Maybe I'd be that person since we have 4 and I want 8, but I doubt it. I think 8 is such a good number. Wow, he's pretty far behind. Yeah, I am pretty far behind. Sorry. Oh no, Mizzou's 4-5. So yeah, with Vanderbilt and Tennessee still on the schedule, and I know they're still on the schedule because last week all of them were winless in the conference. So that's how I remember. Um, do you like Gus Johnson? Yes, I think he's very good. BYU is not in the right location. I don't know what that means. I feel like Utah is a great place for BYU to be. What are the chances of an Alabama versus Oklahoma Sugar Bowl rematch in the playoffs? Pretty good. Obviously, that would mean Alabama's 1, Oklahoma's 4. So it depends on what happens in the SEC championship game with Georgia. But yeah, and Notre Dame, obviously, and other teams, Clemson. But Alabama, Oklahoma Sugar Bowl, if you told me that was a bowl game right now, I would absolutely believe it. What do you think the chances of a bowl game at US Bank Stadium? Is that Minneapolis? Is that where the Vikings play? US Bank Stadium? I'm like near the bottom now because some people have dropped off because it's late. So I can actually almost see your answers in real time. I don't want to search for it. It's been 2.5 hours. I'm lazy. Alright, I probably should keep talking while I'm actually looking for the answer. Alright, I'll scroll up a little bit. Do you think there's too many bowl games because now they have 5 and 7 teams becoming eligible? Yeah, there's way too many bowl games. I would cap it at 20, including the playoffs. Maybe 25, but yeah, that's the Viking Stadium. Well, the national championship is coming there, right? In 2020? Maybe I'm making that up. Maybe the Super Bowl is coming there. But I mean, they have a bowl game at in Detroit. So, and I don't know if it's true or not, but my image of Detroit is it's a lot stabbier than Minneapolis. So I imagine that Minneapolis would be fine. Clemson at 10, that's a joke. Maybe. But there's still plenty of time for them to move up. That loss was a bad loss. I understand. Backup quarterback, on the road, short week, backup kicker, lost by 3. I totally understand all that, but from the get-go, that defense looked... Clemson's defense, which coming into that week I thought was the best in the country, they looked really bad. And they had no answer for Eric Dungey the entire night. Should the College Football Playoff Championship game be played up north like MetLife Stadium or Lambeau? No. If it's going to be played up north, it's going to have to be at Ford Field or US Bank Stadium, which I officially learned is the Viking Stadium. It'll have to be in a dome. They're not going to do it up north outside. The furthest north they're willing to do that is in Pasadena. I guess that's more north than some others. Wisconsin's chance at College Football Playoff if they run the table, very good. I don't know. Obviously, it depends on a lot of things that are going on. Can I see them leaving out an undefeated Wisconsin? I can, to be honest with you. I would not agree with it. I would say put them in at 13-0, and the Big Ten champions. I would absolutely put them in there. But I can see them being left out based on what's going on right now with the way that they're ranked. We'll know a lot more tomorrow when they unleash their rankings. My AC kicked on. Big 12, Memphis. Yeah, I think Memphis to the Big 12 is a good move. I was on board with Memphis and Cincinnati moving to the Big 12 during this last round of not expansion. All right, it's 12:17. 12:30, I'm hopping off. So 13 minutes. If you could switch any star player to a different position, who and what position? I have no idea. That is a really good question that I don't have to take some time to think about. Where do you get the mini helmets? I have some right here. I'll put the two up that I just randomly pulled out. I should have put some of the review from this week, but I didn't. I got them at the mall, at like a lid store, and then I bought some from Dick's online. I keep wanting to make a video and put out an affiliate link for it, but every time I go to find them, they're sold out of everything, or they have like 3 left. And I know more than 3 of y'all are probably going to buy some, so. I think you do what I do because I'm overly critical of my favorite teams. Clemson at 10 isn't that bad, at least not to me. You're probably right. The funny thing is, and I said this in my video a couple Thursdays ago, I grew up a Clemson fan, went to Alabama, and when people say, like, you're just a Clemson hater, I'd laugh. I think it's ridiculous. But the flip side to that probably is I really do judge them more harshly. Because that loss, to me, was a really bad loss. Even with all of the other things surrounding it, and the committee obviously gave Clemson a pass because of all those things, I didn't. I thought Clemson still should have beaten them. Clemson could not run the ball. Clemson could not stop anything on defense. And if it wasn't for a defensive fumble return for a touchdown, they wouldn't have even been in the game. So, yeah, I probably am. It's kind of funny. I probably am more critical than I need to be. Is Kirby Smart going to be a legendary coach for a long time at Georgia? Time will tell. Cannot tell you that right now. If dude wins a national championship this year, yep. It'll be Kirby Smart Field next year. If they leave out Wisconsin, people will riot and ask for an 8-team playoff. Yeah. Yes, they would. And especially if you get 2 SEC teams and Notre Dame in there. And then they put in like a 1-loss Clemson or 1-loss Oklahoma and leave out undefeated Wisconsin. And Wisconsin would have every right to burn the committee. Where do they meet? Dallas? To burn that to the ground. What current 2-loss teams do you think will make a New Year's Six bowl? Auburn. If they went out. I assume that's the question. Auburn could get in there. The loser of Oklahoma TCU could get in there. Oklahoma State. What are some other 2-loss teams right now? USC. It's hard because a lot of these teams are going to play each other. If Notre Dame or Clemson loses, they'll be... Actually, if Notre Dame and Clemson loses, that'll probably be your Orange Bowl. Yeah. Ask me that again in a week or two when we have a better feeling of what the team's record is. Is the Big 12 going to die? Big 12 fans... Oh no, I lost... Damn it. Big 12 fans, do you see this coming? Is Big 12 going to die? It could. It very well could. If they don't do something, if they don't expand, they're going to die. When the new TV contracts come out, they will not survive, in my opinion. How would you feel Toledo and Army going into the American? That's fine. I love the idea of Army going in there. Built-in conference game with Navy. That'll be fun. Toledo, I don't know enough about Toledo to know if they have deep-rooted rivalries in the MAC. I feel like Toledo joined the MAC in like the 70s or 80s, so it wouldn't be as deep-rutting as like Miami of Ohio, that's been in there for a long time, or the Michigan schools. They play for the Michigan MAC Trophy, which I think is funny. So I don't know about the history loss of Toledo going into the American, but they're one of the better American teams this year, MAC teams this year at least. Thoughts on Iowa? Iowa's a weird team to pin down, man. They are a weird team. They not barely beat Wyoming, 21-3, I think. But upset Ohio State, blew Ohio State out. Not even upset them. Embarrassed Ohio State. Could have beaten Penn State. Beat Iowa State in an overtime game that now looks better than it did then. If they can beat Wisconsin, that'll be really, really interesting to see what the committee does with them. Because I think Iowa has 2 losses, right? I can't remember who they are. Who they're to. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Have I ever been to Zaxby's? Yes, I get the Big Zax snack meal. It's good. What if the Big East and the Big 12 would have merged together? That would have been crazy. That would have been so many teams. The Big East left over, that would have been like 20 teams, right? I guess you're saying if after the Big 12 lost members and the Big East lost members, it'd be like 16 teams maybe. Do I have Notre Dame mini helmet? I do not. They're not in a conference. They sell them by the conferences. And they keep being out of the Pac-12, and I keep trying to find it. And they keep, either they're out of the Pac-12 or they're on eBay for like $100. And I'm not spending $100 for Pac-12 helmets. And Notre Dame's not in a conference. So Maryland was smart to go to the Big Ten because they will make more money now. Probably. The ACC's catching up. But at the time, Maryland was like going bankrupt in a lot of their sports. So you are so lucky to have Clemson and Alabama as your favorite teams and have a reason for it too. Yeah, this is a really good time to be me. And I'm an Eagles fan. Have been my entire life. And if there's a chance, I don't want to like ruin it. I don't believe in karma or whatever. I'm not knocking on wood. But there's a chance that Alabama, Clemson, and the Eagles could win championships 3 straight years. I don't even know what I would do. Like growing up, the idea of Clemson and Philadelphia winning championships was so crazy to me. There's no way I would ever imagine all 3 of them winning in back-to-back years, 2 of them beating each other for it nonetheless. It's nuts. I'm a sad Illinois fan. Yeah, I get it. You have a lot of reasons to be sad. Are you doing a college football playoff reaction video after the rankings come out tomorrow? Yes. Yes, I am. Last year, I got so far behind. The Eliminator kicked my butt last week. Because I don't know if you guys know this. Whenever you see the teams on those little graphics I make, and you see the whatever color they are, that is the official hex code of the team's website, from the university website. So, if you look, like Memphis's blue is different than Buffalo's blue. If you ever see like gold, they're different colors gold. I put an S in there, weird. They're different colors of gold between the two. So I had to hunt all that stuff down last week. I had to put everything in order and like think about who was eliminated and how these things were going to go. And that video took like 8 or 9 hours because I had to plan and everything. It won't take that long this week. Because I had to like set everything up, and that put me so far behind on all the other videos. I never actually made a top 25 video last week, but I will tomorrow. It'll be up tomorrow night, I promise. Pinky promise. Do you think if Wisconsin beats Iowa, that will be a good win for my Badgers? Yes, I do. And it'll drive a nail right into Ohio State's heart. My New Year's 6 teams are Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Miami, Clemson, Oklahoma, TCU, USC, Washington, Notre Dame, and UCF. Yep, that makes perfect sense right now. That will all change in a week, by the way. That's the great thing about college football. Everything we've talked about tonight is going to be kaput next week anyway. Favorite college football trophy. Personally, I like Paul Bunyan and the Land Grant. I do not like the Land Grant trophy. Sorry. I'm not a fan. Favorite trophy. I wish the slab of bacon was still around. I think that's funny. I like the Paul Bunyan trophy because you get to put your team's helmet on him and trot him around. That's funny. Most trophies are kind of boring. I think I hate every trophy I was a part of. I don't think I like a single one of those trophies. I'm just like flashing through them in my head. I like victory bells. I know like Cincinnati and Miami of Ohio play for one. Duke and I think that's Victory Bell. Duke and North Carolina play for one. UCLA and USC play for one. I think they're fun. I like that you can like do stuff with it. It's interactive. What happens if there's a co-Heisman? There will not be a co-Heisman. Hope you enjoy Ajayi. Jay Ajayi. I can't say his last name, just his last name. Fins up. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Kalen. And he scored a touchdown in his first like series with us. Sorry, that probably hurts. UCF was a part of the MAC for like 4 seasons. I didn't know that. Maybe I did. I don't think I knew that. Should Scott Frost go to Florida or Nebraska if he chooses to leave UCF? That's going to be the question. I assume since he's in Orlando right now that those will probably be the 2 biggest targets for him. I could be wrong. I don't know the guy. Going and coaching at your alma mater, there's a lot of pressure with that. And it doesn't always work out very well because you love the program so much and everybody there supports you. But, you know, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Kingsbury at Texas Tech. There was one other one I had. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State's worked out for the most part. But coaching at your alma mater is tough. Do you see the Big Ten getting left out if 2-loss Ohio State wins conference? Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. Nothing but respect for you, man. Truly dedicated. Thank you. I try. What's your favorite mascot? I don't know about actual mascot. I'm obviously very fond of Big Al. I wasn't for a long time, but he's grown on me. But if you're talking about like team nickname, you were talking about mascot. That's why you asked that. But team nickname, I like the really weird ones. I like Sun Devils. I like the Richmond Spiders. Youngstown State Penguins are probably my favorite. But as far as the actual mascots, I like Georgia Tech's. He's fun with his butt wiggling behind him everywhere he goes. I like Notre Dame's Irishman. I think he's funny every time I see him. Same with West Virginia and Tennessee and their live mascots, a little like Daniel Boone. Favorite Notre Dame rivalry trophy? The Shillelagh, of course. Why do the Eagles hate Blunt? I don't think they hate Blunt. I think he, as I've said earlier about somebody else, he has a very particular set of skills. He's the guy you put in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter to finally really push down that defensive line. I do wonder if the Eagles getting Ajayi, if that's going to knock out Blunt, who only signed a 1-year contract with the Eagles. When I said knocked out Blunt, the first thing I thought of was him punching that Boise State player and how funny it is that a Boise State running back might take his job. All right, it is 12:31 where I am. How much did you like the mascot mashup in NCAA? I never played it. I never liked it that much. But it's 12:31 where I live. For all of you West Coasters, it's 9:30. Have fun with the rest of your night. With all you East Coasters, go to sleep. You have work tomorrow. You have school. I'm just kidding. You can do whatever you want. But thank you guys so much for my very first live stream. That was really fun. My throat's starting to feel a little bit, so I'm going to go. I don't know what to do with throat things. I don't really drink tea. I have some peppermints. I'll probably get some peppermints. But yeah, thank you guys so much for this very first live stream. I appreciate it. We hit 85 likes during the live stream, which is really cool. Again, this chat is about to disappear. So if you have any video ideas for me, come back whenever it reprocesses. I don't know how long it would take. I was on here for about 2.5 hours. So it would probably take at least that long to process. So just come back in the morning and drop some comments below about video ideas, what ifs, or top tens, and I can give you guys some credit for those because I think it's cool, like, to have a fan base, not a fan base, but a viewership and a subscriber base that genuinely wants to see videos and pushes out ideas. And I want to reward you, and if they're good enough, make videos about it. So I definitely want to make sure to be able to credit people. So make sure to come back for that. Other than that, thank you guys so much for my very first live stream. It was really, really fun. And I will do it again on Thursdays and Mondays. Thursdays, I want to talk about the games upcoming. And Mondays, this was an introductory one, so I just kind of answered whatever you guys had. But I would like to start talking about the games that happened during the past weekend and kind of analyze that a little bit with you. And then on Thursdays, talk about what's upcoming and break those down a little bit. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, until next time. Wisconsin and everybody else, and even the case for Wisconsin isn't that good right now. They expected a one-loss Michigan team at worst, maybe an undefeated Michigan team there at the very end or the next to last game. And the Wolverines already have 2 losses. It's not going to look good, so they expected to have that little boost in the polls right before playing hopefully an undefeated team from the East, and that's not going to happen now. So even a 13-0 Big Ten champ Wisconsin is in danger of being left out. Do I think Michigan is back at the top 25 rank? Yeah, I think Michigan's probably one of the best 25 teams in the nation right now. If they're not, they're right there on the bubble. I can't remember if I put them in. I already done my top 25. I did it yesterday afternoon, and I can't remember if I had them in or not. I don't have that right beside me. USC will win the Pac-12 and win the Fiesta Bowl. At this point, I don't doubt that. That's Jared Cruz. I don't doubt that because they beat Arizona, which was the only other. I think Arizona was 4-1, 3-1 in the conference, and Arizona State has 2 losses in the division already. So USC probably should win out. I think one more win and they clinch, or if Arizona State loses, they clinch. And the teams from the North right now, I believed in Stanford in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if it's Bryce Love's injury. That win against Oregon was a really, really bad win. And they lost to Washington State, who can't decide if they want to keep Luke Falk as their quarterback or not. You still have Washington, but Washington still has to play Washington State. And when USC played Washington last year, it didn't go very well. And that was back when I think Washington had a little bit more weapons than they do now. But it was also when Sam Darnold played at a higher level than he is right now. So I don't really know. But USC in the Fiesta Bowl, I think is a better case than probably some of the other bowls. The way it works out this year, in case you didn't know, since the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl are playoff spots, the Orange Bowl gets the either ACC champion, if they're not in the playoff, or the next best ACC team. So if we assume Clemson goes to the playoff, if they don't, obviously Clemson will be in the Orange Bowl. If Clemson goes to the playoff, it would be probably the loser of the ACC championship game, because I would assume at that point either Virginia Tech or Miami are the next highest ranked team. Other than that, I don't think there's any automatic bids. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the Peach and the Fiesta are always open bids. Sugar Bowl always has the SEC champ, but it's a pretty safe bet at this point that the SEC champ is going to be in the playoff. The Rose Bowl is the Big Ten Pac-12 champs, but that's used for the playoff. And I think that's it. So the Big 12 normally does the sugar or orange. Is that right? I think it used to be the cotton. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But it's pretty much a free-for-all when it comes to the New Year's Six bowls this year. The Group of 5 team will probably go to the Peach Bowl from what I've been reading. Dan Blanchard. I'm sorry, I know there's so many comments. Like, I can see them out of the corner of my eye when I'm looking right at the camera that there's comments going by. I don't want you to spam, but at the same time, if you ask, you have a better chance of seeing it. I tend to ramble, That's something that you guys don't see that I edit out of my videos a lot since this is my first live stream. You'll get a full dose of it. I ramble a whole lot. So if you ask me something, I tend to go on like a little wave of it. And if you're randomly watching me and not subscribed, definitely make sure to hit the red subscribe button right there, probably. I'm watching the live stream as it's happening, so I'm behind. So I don't know if I actually pointed at the right thing or not. But definitely make sure to subscribe and talk to me in the chat. Let me know what you guys are up to, what you thought about this weekend, what you are looking forward to. Yeah, I hit the subscribe button pretty much right on. I'm pretty proud of that. See what you guys are looking for this weekend. What was your biggest takeaway from this past weekend? It's really strange. It's all quiet. I just have this little microphone and this webcam that isn't quite as high res as I wanted it to be, and then your comments. So it's very strange. It's very weird. Skittle Steve 01 says thoughts on Clemson. Clemson has everything in front of them. They still have Auburn as a really good win. People keep talking about Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Auburn as really good wins. Louisville is not good. Louisville is Lamar Jackson and everybody else. So saying that Louisville is a good road win, while at the time in September that looked like a really good road win, now not as much. So you still have Auburn, but Auburn has a chance to lose 2 more games to Georgia and Alabama. So I don't know if we would, an 8-4 team at the end of the year. That's fine. That's a good win. But is it good enough to justify Clemson getting into the playoff if they were to win out? I don't know. If Notre Dame beats Miami, and Clemson beats Miami in the ACC Championship, they will have beaten eventually a 2-loss team. Is that worthy of getting into the playoff? I'm not really sure. But as long as Kelly Bryant is healthy, and as long as the offense can stay on the field and keep the defense off the field, which is not what happened in the Carrier Dome against Syracuse, then I definitely think Clemson has a chance. Do I think right now Clemson is one of the 4 best teams in the country? I do not. But you can tell that by my ranking. But there's still a lot of room for improvement. South Carolina is now going to be a better looking win than I thought it would be at the beginning of the year. Hopefully for the Tigers, Miami stays undefeated and they can beat a 12-0 Miami team. But I've got a feeling Notre Dame is probably going to beat them this weekend. But I also thought Virginia Tech was going to beat Miami, and I was wrong about that. So, is there any hope left for Ohio State in the playoffs, says Nicholas? No. No, that pretty much got snuffed out by Iowa. And then especially when you have the head-to-head with Oklahoma. Oklahoma in Columbus was a much better team. So with the way Notre Dame is really throwing a wrench in the plan of the playoff right now, and undefeated Georgia, undefeated Alabama is really screwing it up. It looks like there's only going to be you're going to have maybe 2 SEC teams, Notre Dame, and then a bunch of teams vying for that 4th spot. And they're probably, if everything keeps going the way it's going to go, they're probably either going to give it to the defending champ Clemson or to Oklahoma. So, no, I think Ohio State and Penn State are both pretty much done. Those were both not great losses. Penn State, if you want to say 3-hour delay, there was that 3-hour delay. They were on the road in weird conditions. They had the lead. They had, a chance late. But Michigan State had all of those things happen to them too, and they won, except for the road thing. They were home. But video from the break of, Saquon, I don't know what they were throwing, M&Ms or something he was catching in his mouth. They seemed pretty loose and pretty... They didn't seem, all that wound up during the break. So I do think the Big Ten, it's really... I was about to ask. I was about to say one. Dan Blanchard, do you think if TCU beats Oklahoma and wins the Big 12 championship, then they get in the playoffs? As long as they stay 1 loss, I think that is fine, because Oklahoma's 1 loss would also be against Iowa State. The problem with that is they would probably play twice based on how it's seizing up right now. It will probably be TCU and Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game if I were a betting man right now, no matter the outcome of their game. But if they beat Oklahoma twice, their only loss is to Iowa State, and they have that one loss, they have an excellent, excellent case. Because the Iowa State loss, when you used to lose to Iowa State, that looked like doo-doo, and now it doesn't look as doo-doo anymore. They're still in the top 25. They'll still be in the top 25 this week after the loss to West Virginia. They're not going to drop from 15 all the way out. That Iowa game was so entertaining, says Matt the Destroyer. Depends on who you're rooting for, I guess. Bet Ohio State fans would not agree with you, but I was not watching the very beginning of that game. I always flip around between like 3 or 4 games, and I was not watching the beginning of that game. That was the 3:30 game. I was watching Clemson, NC State, Iowa, Ohio State, Bedlam when it came on, and Penn State, Michigan State, because that was still on from the rain delay. I think those are the games I was mostly flipping around during the 3:30. But opening play, pick 6, that set the whole tone. And for a quarterback like JT Barrett, who is, I don't know the kid. I'm not in his head. But I know he has gone through a lot of adversity in his, 5 years at Ohio State. All kinds of ups and downs. Heisman watch lists, injuries, people doubting him. He had a 25-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And then to have such a great game and go, I think, 18 of 18, in his last quarter and a half against Penn State, and then to come out in your first play on the road in a tough venue, in a game that's really important, when you're back on top of the Heisman watch list or near the top, and to throw a pick 6, that's got to be brutal. So he might be too mentally volatile, and it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back rather. Andrew Flister says, watching some of your older videos and you look a lot better. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I'm going to assume you mean the quality of the videos and not that I specifically look better. I have not lost any weight. So thank you for the technical compliment. If Miami wins against Notre Dame this weekend, can Miami still make the playoff? Yeah, of course. They're undefeated. Miami needs to win this weekend against Notre Dame to continue to make the playoffs. Hagen's crew says, can Auburn clinch a number 4 slot? Probably not, just because of the 2 losses. They're not bad losses. Clemson and LSU are not bad, but you're going to have probably a handful of 1-loss teams. You already have Notre Dame at number 3 and Clemson at number 4, and you lost to Clemson, so you would need Clemson to lose another game. But even then, Clemson's still a 2-loss team that beat you, so wouldn't they still theoretically be ahead of you in the rankings? The Big 12 is going to eat itself, so I'm not sure that Auburn can clinch the 4 slot unless Notre Dame loses. If there's still a chance for a lot of chaos to happen in the next really 4 weeks, including the championship weekend, because you have 5 undefeated teams. 2 of them play each other. One has to play, and Wisconsin has to play a much better division. And Miami still has to play Clemson. UCF still has to play USF and the winner of the West, which I believe will probably be Memphis in the American. So there's still a lot of room for chaos. Yeah, a lot of room for some chaos. If there is a 2-loss team that gets into the playoffs, I'm just curious what you think. And let me know down in the chat. What is the scenario where we would have to get an 8-team playoff? I feel like if one conference gets 2 teams in, Notre Dame is in, and then you have a 2-loss champion in, that would be all hell would break loose, right? So I think that would probably nudge people to start thinking about an 8-team playoff in 2022, because they already kind of have a contract through, I think, 2021, but I'm not sure about that. What do I think of BYU's terrible season, and will Texas make it to a bowl? Yeah, I don't know what's going on in BYU. I know part of that is their schedule because they're independent, but 1-8 or 2-8, whatever they are right now, is unacceptable. Will Texas make it to a bowl game? I think Texas makes it to a bowl game. Do I think there's any chance the Big Ten will reorganize their divisions after the season? Commander Holland asks. No. I think the way I think about divisions is I always think about the SEC. Yes, they did it first. But when I was growing up, I was born in 1989. When I was growing up in the 90s, the East was it. I'm not even sure I could have told you who was all in the West. The East was it. You had Georgia, you had Tennessee, you had Kentucky. I'm just kidding. You had Florida. So there was a lot of, the East was it every year. I didn't grow up watching Alabama, LSU. I grew up watching Georgia, Tennessee, and Georgia, Florida. So, no, I don't think they'll reorganize because in the 90s it was the East, and then in the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, it's the West. And I have no doubt that within the next 10 years it'll shift back to the East dominating. I know that seems kind of weird with Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Tennessee all being just crap at the bottom of the East, but I do think it'll switch back to them eventually. I have no idea how to say your name, but FF asked me what do I think about the Louisville Cardinals. They are a one-man team. It is Lamar Jackson, and there are 21 other people on the field, and that's it. And that poor kid, he plays his heart out. He does everything that the coaches ask of him and more. He does everything to win those games. He has consistently like 400 and 500-yard games. And then the defense lets Boston College get 45 points and they lose. It has got to be so frustrating. I don't know what his pro scout card looks like. I don't know if he is thinking about going pro, if he'll be able to do that as a quarterback in the NFL. I'm just not sure. But I would try to get out of there. I think he's a junior. I would work on my degree and transfer. I have this feeling that Bobby Petrino is done after this year. I don't know why, other than his history, but I do think he's watching his team tank a little bit. There's going to be a lot of job openings, a lot of big-time job openings where teams want an offense. All right, I believe we are live. This is my first live stream, so hopefully it is going fine. Hopefully you guys can hear me. You guys can see me. Is that right? I see some highs. Hello, Micah. Whatever to watch. I'm on a super long delay, I think. Let me see if I can change the latency. I counted it before the live stream, and I was on like a minute latency, which is way too long. So from the time I say something until the time you hear it, it was like a minute. So that was way too long. But I think everything is fine now. How are you guys doing? This is my first live stream. I'm terrified and excited. Microphone is out of the way over here. I wish I had one of those cool boom microphones, but I don't. So hopefully you guys can hear me fine. It was working pretty good in the setup, so hopefully that's good for you guys. Everything seems like it's working, says Antichrist. Always good to get Antichrist stamp of approval. All right, there's 36 people in here. What's up? That's pretty neat. Do I think Auburn gets their first passing touchdown against Georgia since 2013? Probably, as long as all their running backs are actually healthy. They've had, especially Carry On has had some trouble staying healthy this year. Is Ohio State overrated? We will see, won't we, in the next in the top 25 that's released tomorrow. I think they had a glimmer of hope that they were actually all they were cut out to be, and then they blew it big time in Iowa City. All right, so there were a bunch of really big games this past weekend. You obviously had Bedlam, Oklahoma State. That was a huge game that could have really gone either way. Towards the end of the game, I'm really glad that I was kind of worried that targeting call was going to change the game for Oklahoma. It turned out not to matter in the end. But at that moment, if you watch that game, it was a seesaw battle all the way through. I'm kind of mad that Oklahoma got that extra touchdown because I joked with my brother that the final score would be 56-54, and it would have been 55-52, and I was pretty damn close. So I'm kind of mad they got that touchdown and ruined my reputation with my brother for that one game. But yeah, I was worried with the targeting call that they called the targeting right before Oklahoma got the interception. At home with that crowd, with the momentum change, I really thought Oklahoma State was going to pull it out. That's kind of what you expect to see happen, but they didn't. Oklahoma forced a 4-and-out after that, and then obviously scored another touchdown. So let me go. Since this is my very first live stream, I don't really have any like notes or anything, so I'm just going to kind of react to you guys. There's 54 people in here. That is neat. So I'm going to kind of react to what you guys are saying. And I'm sorry, the chat's going a little fast for me. Obviously faster than I'm used to because I've never done this before. If you wouldn't mind, hit the like button. That would be really cool to see some likes hit up. And